Out as well to make some pictures of him.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Drift Masters European Championship. It is round 4, we're in Latvia, and it's Riga, baby! It's going to be a huge event. We have all the fans here, we have a sold-out show, the energy is high, even though we've had a complete weather change. Now, yesterday in qualifying, we had lovely, hot weather, and now today, the rain has come down, which is going to change every driver's strategy and everything. Wow, we've got an intruder on the live stream here. So, today is going to be our top 32 battles, which means it's going to be all to play for in the championship. It is wide open. But let's take a look at some of the pictures from qualifying yesterday. We had some huge moments with Marko Zakaril absolutely lighting up the rear end of his car there. As you can see, it was a dramatic moment, but it meant that he made it into his top 32 battles. And that's all that matters. He puts on a show and he gets in the show. And then Christian Erlandsson, wowee. He managed to DB 2 tires and very nearly managed to roll the car, but thankfully he is A-OK. But he will be joining us at round 5 in Pöytälaakso. Now, guys, we have got such a huge day coming up because, as I say, everything is to play for now the rain has come down. Let's take a look at our calendar at the events that we have. We've had 3 rounds so far with 3 different winners. So who's going to take the top spot for the King of Riga here in Latvia? We're going to be going in a few weeks' time up to Pöytälaakso in Germany, and then finally all roads lead to the PGE Arena for round 6 in Poland. It's going to be an absolutely massive season, as I say, wide open right now, with our top spot being taken by Conor Shanahan. Our defending champion Piotr Więcek has got some work to do this round if he's going to get all the way back up there and become the first 3-peat champion. But there was a lot of carnage at Huvivaltio Park in Finland, so let's take a look at what happened there.
Welcome to round 3 of the Drift Masters European Championship here in Finland. The Power Park, a brand new track. It is looking glorious.
I'll tell you what, theme parks are always about adrenaline, right? Nobody has ever felt adrenaline like we got on that start grid. This is the wildest place I've ever been for passionate fans. I think some of their best in the business on the grid. They are amped for this one.
They're off the line through the gears. McKeever looks... Oh, a big error from Duane McKeever as he throws the car backwards towards outside zone 6.
And our championship points leader goes out in top 32.
Well, there we go. Look at this from Correia. Almost throws it in backwards. Oh, Więcek shuts it down!
What has happened? You can see the hands on the head, and out goes Piotr Więcek. Diogo Correia from Portugal is into the top 8. Conor Shanahan, Rintanen, here we go.
Look at this through the gears. They felt each other out. They know the car setups, they know the grip levels, and they fire in. Shanahan's dialed this car up. He wants more grip, he wants more power. Rintanen now on the ropes against Shanahan on the wall.
It's Conor Shanahan. Conor Shanahan gets the win, goes through to the final 4. Lauri Heinonen having an issue with the car in the burnout box.
He's lost the power steering. He had his arms up, making the cross. That means our start line marshal passing has deemed it unsafe to run.
Meaning Jack Shanahan will go through to the final. Juha Rintanen goes out. Lauri Heinonen to retire from the competition. Nothing is predictable. It means we have one more battle left to go, and it will be brother v brother. And here we are for top step on the podium.
Through the gears they go. Shanahan versus Shanahan. Jack almost makes contact with Conor on the initiation. They're both up and into the wall, and Jack is all over the side of his brother's GT86, on the curb, on the door, on the wall. Does it make sense? They're not going to let it make sense as they fire through. Separation as Jack gives Conor the room to manoeuvre now, as Jack once again looks for a side of his brother's car and he batters him across the line.
Wow, unbelievable driving from both the Shanahans. There was at least 4 or 5 door hits in that run. Conor Shanahan gets the win at round 3 of the Drift Masters European Championship. It's been an unbelievable day. He started by taking out Kalle Rovanperä. He finishes by taking out his own brother. An unbelievable performance from Conor Shanahan.
And there you have your championship standings. Conor Shanahan still taking the lead after that win in Finland. And there are 36 points between the top 5 drivers. Now, I've come down to the paddock to have a chat with a driver who's currently sitting 45 points behind that top spot, Piotr Więcek. Now, Peter, you've had an interesting season so far. You've had a win, you've had a top 32, a top 16, and now you've had a top qualifier here in Latvia. How do you think your season's going so far?
Yeah, it was quite eventful, you're right. We had a lot of car issues so far. Even this event, before the practice starts, we have an engine failure. Then we have the issue with the throttle body in the qualification, and again with the gearbox. So, yeah, so far, but guys, with my team, the whole crew, simply they did the best, and we managed to qualify first. Big thanks to them, simply. And now we are just waiting for our top 32 battle, which will be held in the new conditions for us because we weren't able to practice in those, so it will be interesting for sure.
We've got to talk about the weather because this track completely changes from dry to wet. And when it's the fastest track of the season, you're really going to feel the difference. But this is quite a lucky track for you. I mean, 2022, you won here. 2021, you won the championship. You didn't even believe me when I told you, if you remember that. Yeah. So how are you feeling ahead of going out there in the wet today? Tell us how that changes it for you.
Yeah, so far Riga likes us and we really like Riga. But yeah, today, this weekend, the track was really grippy. We were never experiencing Riga being that grippy, so we need to really take out some grip from the car. But we'll see how it's going to be when it's wet. I remember that once we've been in such a conditions that first it was dry, then it becomes wet, the surface rubbered a lot, so it starts to be a bit slippery, but we are just about to experience that top 32. Fingers crossed that after this run we will still like Riga like we do currently.
Absolutely. I mean, big top 32 battle. You got Nicholas Bertens. You're looking for that three-peat, the first three-peat in Drift Masters history. Do you think you can still do it?
I don't know. We will see in a second. You never know. It's drifting, so it's something that you can never expect what's going to happen in the end. So fingers crossed for a good battle, simply a good show.
Thank you so much, Peter, and good luck in your first battle. Right, guys, we're going to take a walk through the paddock now, see what's going on. Obviously, it's always a hive of activity. We've just had practice. Yesterday, we had a couple of offs there. So, you know what? You never know what's going to happen next. So, Conor Shanahan having a few little mechanical issues, but hopefully that's all back on the line now. He's looking like that car's buttoned back up, and they will be heading to their top 32 battle. I mean, he's in first place right now, so he needs everything to go for him this weekend so he can really put those points on the board and keep pushing forwards towards his first championship. We're heading over to Nicholas Bertens. I mean, this weather, guys. Riga is normally so hot, so sunny. We've got a sold-out show here, but the rain is not deterring anybody. The grandstands are filling up. I love the energy here. It's amazing. Let's see how Nik Nak is getting on. Nicholas Bertens, just getting that car ready. Where is he? Where's our driver? Where is Nicholas? Nicholas, come and have a chat with me.
Yeah, so right now we'll have a tandem show.
Where are you? How are you? So, top 32 battle, you've got Piotr Więcek. Now, a lot of people would want you to take this guy out. Do you think you got what it takes?
We'll see. We had a good practice today. I settled in the car and everything was working better. But now it's raining, so it's going to be completely different.
Now, you know this track. This is your home track. How does Pikkanicky Trassa change when the wet comes down? Well, the rain comes down, actually.
Yeah, well, it gets really slippery and really technical, so I cannot unveil the secrets, but I can unveil one thing that I don't even know what to do, so...
How does it feel to have all of your home fans here cheering you on?
It's warming up my heart all the time. Like, you know, we have a lot of Latvian fans, also Finnish fans, because they were the first to buy the tickets. But, yeah, good to have them here and having the support from the side and good words coming in. So, yeah, thank you for being here.
I have one last question. If you had to guess how many laps of this track you've done, could you guess?
Not really, because I have been driving here since day one. Like, I started driving here, but not from the layouts that we're used to. So we had practice last weekend here in the wet. It went well, but I did only like 10 laps, but it changed all the time. So we'll see. I'm ready. I'm ready to put it on his door if I can even catch him. So should be okay. Should be interesting.
Wishing you good luck for your first battle, Nicholas. Right, guys, let's get into our top 32 action. I'm going to hand you up to our commentators. Guys, take it away.
That's impressive.
Thank you, Becky. And I'll tell you one thing, if you wanted unpredictable nature in your drifting, well, we've got a ton of it here this weekend. My name is Dave Egan. Hello, everyone. I'll be talking you through all the action with my good friend and colleague, Eddie Power. Eddie, yesterday qualifying was pretty smooth. We had every driver on the track in dry conditions. They all looked super comfortable. That's gone all out the window. Practice this morning, again dry. No driver on this grid has done a wet lap of this track this weekend. This means that all of those championship hopefuls are going to be under big pressure now, and one error, that's the end of your season.
Absolutely, Dave, and you can see just from those shots there how much rain has fallen here on the circuit, and as you mentioned, no wet practice laps put down on this circuit from any of the drivers. Huge amount of rubber laid on this track over the last few days, and it's going to be, it's anybody's guess what's going to happen here in these first few runs in particular. Nicholas Bertans, we just heard from him. For one, he might be looking at this as a blessing sent from the heavens here, because it might just give him the edge over Piotr Więcek in that first battle, but that remains to be seen. But it's a stacked top 32 battles that we have ahead of us here, Dave, rain or dry.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you what, let's just go through what the format of this weekend will be. And I'll tell you one thing, it is going to be wild, because we're talking to some of our weather experts saying that right now we are going to go into our top 32 with a fully wet track, 2 p.m. local time. But then as we get to 5:55 p.m. this evening, the rain will stop at around about 4 o'clock-ish, meaning it could be fully dry for the top 16. So if you want your excitement, you're going to get it all the way through. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not only going to be tough for the drivers, it's also going to be tough for our judging panel. We've got Vernon, we've got David, and our head judge, Kevin, is ready to tell us about this track. And Kevin, in the wet, we haven't watched any runs this weekend. It's going to be very sketchy out there, especially with so much rubber laid down over the last 2 days.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be very difficult for these drivers, but unfortunately for us judges, we have to judge it to the exact same criteria that we always do. So we're going to be comparing this lead to lead and chase to chase. And always, as you see from our lead criteria, what we're looking for that lead driver is for them to run that 100-point qualifying run that we were seeing them in qualifying, running as close to that 100-point qualifying run so that we give them, the chase driver, as much opportunity to know where they're going to be on the track. For that, they have to hit all of those clipping zones, maintain nice consistent angle throughout, and drive so that the chase car can follow. But as we know, this is all about the chase as well, and we love to see that proximity. So for that chase driver, we want to see them maintain as close proximity for as long as possible, initiate no later than the lead driver, match or better the lead driver's angle. That one is very important. We don't want to see anybody sacrificing that angle, and also mimic the lead driver's transitions and line. Even though the conditions aren't ideal, I think we're going to see some awesome battles here today.
Well, Kevin, I'm looking forward to it, because I think, you know, as much as we would love to see a dry track, and we watched it in the dry and qualifying, I think we're still going to see a little bit of that towards the top 16. This is where it gets so sketchy, because you've got 5 or 6 drivers that have to take to this incredibly difficult track with no errors. And there's a lot of errors out there if you want them on this track. And we're going to have a look at the track now, because it is one of the most dangerous, one of the most sketchy. And I'll tell you one thing, I would rather be watching it than driving it today in these conditions. It's got 1 inner zone, 5 outer zones, and it's 670 meters long. And most of that is full throttle, foot to the floor stuff all the way. From the start line, you're banging through the gears up to 4th gear in most of these cars, and firing into that first corner at maximum speed and angle. Expect to see a little bit more handbrake on that entry here in the wet, just to steady that car in this very slight first corner. Full throttle through outer zone 1, full throttle outer zone 2, still full throttle in inner zone 3, and then outer zone 4. This is where it gets sketchy. This transition from outer zone 4 to 5 to keep the car on momentum, get out towards the curbs. You do not want to touch any of the curbs here, because if you do, it unsettles the car massively. You see Michael Reichardt there struggling with some of that line yesterday. And then it's into the deceleration zone, this massive outer zone 6, which in the wet will seem like it's going on forever. And then you don't want to get in the wall, because that messes up your run as well. And here's our top 32 grid that are going to take to the track today. And look at these. Straight from the off, we've got Piotr Więcek, the guy trying to defend the championship, going up against a driver who knows this track better than he does in Nicholas Bertans. Look at the massive battles coming along. Look at Adam Zalewski, Duane McKeever in there, Jack Shannon, Felix Lindvall, You got Nakamura and Kevin Pazur looking like he's one of the most competent drivers on this track this weekend. Piskolty against Cherba. This is just top 32 stuff, and we're seeing finals lining up from left to right across the battle. Of course, James Deane, the cat amongst the pigeons this weekend, with Kevin Piskolty trying to creep into that top 10 in the championship. But Deane, he's comfortable in the wet and the dry. He's going to be one to watch right throughout. Of course, a wild card this weekend. Some big names like Eryk, Goczał and Itay, Sadeh, two youngsters could make a big move this weekend as well. Conor Shanahan will be going up against Alex Holovnia, and that's going to be another big battle on the other side of the bracket. You've got Więcek on one side, Shanahan on the other. It's all mixed up. And I'll tell you what, right now the wipers are on, the tension is high, and we are ready to head to top 32. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to take your heart, put it in your mouth, because it's going to be there for the rest of the day. It is going to be Nik Nak from Latvia, the local hero, going up against Piotr Więcek, who has to get the job done here. A top 32 exit for Piotr Więcek would probably end his championship hopes of 3 in a row. This is the most important battle for him this year, I would imagine, and he's got to start fighting now. And Nicholas Bertens will be giving away a lot of grip and a lot of power to Piotr Więcek, but not in these conditions. This is where the naturally aspirated V8 of Nicholas Bertens is going to come into play. He has probably got the better machine here for the wet. You can imagine Więcek is a little nervous on that start line, as the lights will eventually go green and we will send him into the first battle of our top 32 here at round 4. Więcek can't afford to put a foot wrong.
That's right, Dave. Can't afford any slip-ups here if he wants to secure a spot in the top 16. And Nicholas Bertens right on the door, straight from the off here. The big question here for the last 90 minutes is how are these drivers going to adapt to the wet conditions? Well, right now, no problems for Piotr Więcek or for Nik Nak. Nicholas Bertens doing a fantastic job, matching the speed, matching the angle of Piotr Więcek. Peter up onto the curb there, as you can just see how much slower these drivers are having to drive to try and get these cars around the circuit. But Nik Nak now giving Peter a little bit of a love tap into the wall, but Peter keeps that throttle nicely pinned, and these guys go across the line, Dave. And you know what? It wasn't the fireworks that we expected in the dry, but in the wet, these two guys putting on an absolute clinic there right from the off.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. We talked about Piotr Więcek not making errors. There was some errors there in the lead position. Nicholas Bertens, you can tell he has got that wet practice in the chase position. Comes in on the door of Piotr Więcek through the first corner. Więcek trying to feel the grip out on every corner because he had no practice in these conditions. And watch this for the first mistake as Więcek washes onto that fresh rubber laid down, loses the back end of the car, puts 2 wheels almost up on the curb. Bertens having to do a good job here of slowing down and not making contact. As they transition back, Więcek again getting on that really slippery rubber, and he heads up onto the curb again. And watch this, Więcek going really deep here. 1 wheel in the dirt. Bertens having to hit the brakes to avoid impact with the Polish driver. As they transition back, Więcek again gets back on it, but watch the back end of the car. It starts to lose momentum, so to gain momentum without him putting the throttle down, he puts another wheel up on the curb, another wheel dropped, and Bertens doing a great job here of adapting to Więcek, and that's a beautiful dive in these conditions. As they get through here, Więcek comes through, he hits the wall, Bertens hits him, and again that lead position seems to be the worst position to be in for Więcek because he's the one testing the track, and of course Nicholas can go on that inside line, Eddie, which means he's not taking as many risks with the curbs or the wall. This one very much in the balance, and right now Więcek, I think, a little bit on the ropes.
Yes, certainly looks that way, Dave. After that first run, you have to say advantage in the lead driver's position at the moment for Nicholas Bertens. He'll be feeling a little bit confident after that when the team will be on the radio saying, you know what, Peter's made some mistakes ahead of you. He'll have recognised some of those himself, and now what he's got to do is just focus on that lead line.
Well, the thing is, Bertens now got to go on that wide line, and that's the dangerous line. You got wet paint, you got rubber on the track. This is going to be very interesting to see what happens. When Więcek knows that Bertens was close, Więcek comes in with a big attack through the first corner. Więcek now trying to pour as much pressure as he can onto the youngster as they transition through. What a transition from Piotr Więcek. He is all over the side of Nicholas Bertens here, knowing he's made some mistakes in the... Oh, Więcek makes an error, stays on a bit of understeer there as he goes through in the chase positions. Bertens in the lead position, looking like he is very strong here, and Więcek has to make that last lunge now. He has to make an impact here, or his championship could be all over as he goes up onto the door. Bertens goes into the wall, Więcek goes into Bertens. It's super slow, super sketchy, and I'm not sure which way the judges are going to call that. The Latvian crowd seem to think Bertens has done enough, but there was a lot to digest there.
A lot to digest. Yes, Dave, you're right. But you know what? Notably for me, the lead line from Bertans there, making it so easy for Peter in the chase position. And again, some mistakes from Peter in that chase position, as we'll see here on the replay.
Yeah, for me, you know, this is phenomenal from Piotr Więcek through the first corner. He takes that sort of inner line. He knows the outside line is the slippiest, and this proximity here is absolutely phenomenal. But you got to give it to Nicholas Bertans. He's out there where the judges want him to be, just dropping a little wheel over there is Nicholas Bertans. This transition from Więcek right here and the proximity is phenomenal. But just what happened here. Więcek's on the inside of the track. He hits the handbrake. He's in the perfect position. Bertans gets a little wild here, and Więcek has to straighten up. I'm not sure who's at fault there. Was Bertans on too much angle? Did he let it get too loose? This is a good angle to see this from. So he gets out right to the edge of the track. He's on big angle and he transitions back. Więcek, watch, has a little bit of wobble in the chase position. I'm not sure if the judges will blame Bertans for that or Więcek, but it looked to me like he was in the wrong part of the track, and it was just so sketchy the whole way through. But Bertans, look, not dropping a wheel up on the curb like Więcek did the other way around. Więcek knowing he's making those big dives, and Bertans, I think that extra practice he's got, you know, in previous competitions, but he hits the wall a little heavy for me there and here as well, and slows the car down. Więcek having to make some moves to stay out of the side of his BMW. This is a sketchy one, and one that I don't think is going to be an easy call for the judges.
No, certainly a difficult call for the judges, but I just wonder, Dave, from where I'm sitting, are the bigger mistakes on the side of Piotr Więcek?
Yeah, well, I think the body language from Piotr Więcek says a lot here as he looks with that grimaced face towards the screen. He knows he's made some errors, and this is going to make this very tough for him in this championship hope. So, you know, he hasn't had a lot of luck this year with mechanical failures, but this is a driver versus driver battle here. Both cars not under too much strain in the wet. And I know the judges having a very big analysation of the replays here. A lot of hits with the wall from Bertans towards the end, but it looked to me like Więcek dropping some wheels off the track on the curbs as well. Yeah, and you can tell there's a lot of nerves here.
You can see, I was just going to say, Dave, you can see Peter's nervous here. He knows he hasn't put his best runs together there. He knows that the judges will have picked up on some of those errors. His lead run wasn't as tidy as it could be. Certainly the tidier lead run from where I'm sitting was from Nicholas Bertans. That straighten is huge.
It's a big error, and the question is, did he get bogged down with grip because Bertans was on too much angle, or was it just that the car just worked against him? They're having so much grip dialed in. Who's to know what's going to happen? And you can see from both the drivers, they have no idea. Więcek shakes the head thinking he is probably going to lose this one, but we don't know. The judges are having a big analysation on this, and there's a lot to decipher, especially in the rain, when we're not going to see those perfect runs from the off from any of these battles. But the decision will come in, and who will go through? And it looks like it will be Nicholas Bertans getting the win on a split decision as he goes through, and Więcek exits in the top 32, and this championship just becomes more and more unpredictable. Phenomenal stuff from Nicholas Bertans in those conditions. Kevin, I'm going to quickly throw over to you. It is tough to judge in these conditions, but look to me, and Eddie, like Nicholas Bertans just held his cool a little bit more there.
Yeah, you guys are right. It was a very, very tough call to make, but overall, I think it really comes down to mistakes. If you look at lead to lead, Peter's lead run was very tentative. He wasn't deep in outer zone 1. He missed inner zone 3. You can see here from the replay, he had a very bad wheel drop at outer zone 4, which Nik Nak dealt with very well. And then you can see after this transition as well that Peter also puts a wheel drop over at outer zone 5 as well. And Nik Nak is still there the whole way throughout with that really, really good proximity. You then switch him around, and while Nik Nak had a very, very good lead line, Peter wasn't able to deal with it. He was making corrections behind him. He was having straightens. He was offline, and he was having shallows up of angle as well. So while it was tight, and you could see that David thought it was enough to go one more time, overall it was the mistakes for me and Vernon that just said it was Nik Nak's overall.
Yeah, well, the youngster gets the win. Becky is with, I'm sure, a very dejected Piotr Więcek, whether or not playing into his championship hopes there, Becky.
Absolutely, Dave. Peter, I will say you drew the short straw there. You were the first man out on the track to test the conditions, and the conditions didn't quite work for you. How was that going into clip 4? Was that the first moment you thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble here?
Yeah, I knew this moment is slippery from the past, but I pressed the clutch a bit too soon. I thought it would be fine, and it wasn't still. Same in the outside 5. Yeah, it was a mess in general. I thought should be a bit more careful. This was simply my mistake. So congratulations to Nik Nak. Really great chase run. I had to watch it from the telebeam because my radio stopped working, of course. So if something is going on in the weekends, everything simply. But it was a great pleasure. Thank you, guys. It was great to be part of it. Thank you for cheering up for me, and it was awesome. And see you simply in Germany. Take care and have a great fun.
And there you have it, guys.
Thanks, Becky. Obviously, a very dejected Piotr Więcek, and he's a great guy. He's a worthy champion of this championship, and he's going to be all smiles for the cameras. But inside, he knows what that means. And now, all of a sudden, the sharks that are circling him this year start to perk up. The Duane McKeevers, the Conor Shanahans, the Jack Shanahans, the Lauri Heinenens, the Juha Rintenens. Well, they are all watching that battle with their eyes wide open, saying this could be the year. But there's a long way from here to there, and on a weekend like this, anything can happen. 3 different winners of the first 3 rounds. And what way will it go from here? Well, we've got Max Heidrich against Joakim Andersson now on the line. Max Heidrich, a man that doesn't know how to calm down, so these conditions will be tough for him. And Joakim Andersson, he's maybe the more calculated driver here, but Max Heidrich in the past has pulled things off that we didn't even think were possible with 4 wheels. Every battle knife edge from here on in, and we are going to see some big upsets in this top 32. I have a feeling when we look at the top 16 grid later on today, we won't believe what's happened, and that's the beauty of how competitive this championship is. It's anybody's game, especially with these conditions, and it will be Andersson to lead in Heidrich in the second battle of our top 32. Hold on to your hats.
Yes, hold on to your hats indeed, as Joakim Andersson leads in Max Heidrich for the first run of their top 32 battle. And you can see already Heidrich with a huge angle but a big spin on entry from both drivers there as Joakim Andersson goes into the wall, Dave. And you know what? That just shows you how impressive what Peter and Nik Nak were capable of doing.
I'm going to go back and have a little look at this, Eddie, I think there's contact here. I think Max Heidrich pushes Andersson into the wall. Andersson's had suspension damage with the concrete wall, which means that the judges, well, you can see that rear wheel, all the arms bent on that car. So what's going to have to happen here is if he cannot continue this battle, we're now going to have a competition timeout for Andersson if he's not at fault. Or Heidrich is going to take the win if Andersson is at fault. So the decision for this battle could come down to that first moment on the corner. They didn't even make it through the first corner. So we're going to get a couple of angles to have a look at that. But to me, it would seem that maybe from just initial look, and I could be wrong, and I've been wrong many times in the past, Eddie. It's quite a decorated amount of times I've been wrong. But it looked to me like Heidrich came in close and couldn't slow that car down and made contact, because Andersson was kind of on a good line, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's in the wall. So we'll have a look at the replay. Watch Heidrich here in the chase position as he comes through. He's very wildly in, and I think there's a little bit of contact there with the front of the wheel of the car, and he's pushing Andersson off the track. Now, I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, you can certainly see as they start to over-rotate that there is front-end contact, but was that after the spin or before? That's really what the judges are going to be asking. That camera angle not going to do us any favors.
Yeah, oh, Andersson takes a big hit there, by the way.
Much bigger than what it appeared on as we watched it live.
And Heidrich ends up buried in the back of Andersson's car. And I mean, at that point on this corner, I mean, there's a lot of damage there. You can see the exhaust has been torn completely off the car. All the rear end is completely bent. Andersson is not happy. And what he might be looking at here is that if he's not deemed at fault and he's going to get the win, essentially, or he gets the competition timeout, there's a lot to fix on that car. Okay, so we're getting from the judges that it looks to me like Andersson is going to be deemed at fault. He over-rotates, and that's why Max Heidrich went into his side. And then, you know what? I'm starting to think that might have been the case. I thought, like you said, Eddie, that it was a hit from the start, but when you see the hit in the middle, Andersson's already over-rotating at that point. So Andersson, who is now deemed at fault, will not be able to continue because his car is broken, which would mean that Heidrich would get the win. And he gets the win without even going through the first corner. So this would be a very, very tough thing. So Andersson not impressed, maybe with his performance, maybe with the situation, and you can see definitely his exhaust not impressed with the whole situation either. And a man on a scooter with a broom and an exhaust. That this is quite a balancing act here, and we're going to get an official judging decision from our judges to see exactly. So it's going to be a bye run for Max Heidrich on the second half of the battle. So Max Heidrich goes in, Andersson over-rotates, Heidrich hits him, and there we are. That's the end of the run. So if Heidrich, all he has to do now is just make it around the track and he gets the win.
Yeah, and Max will be hoping that this is the last bit of wet track action that he sees this weekend, as we say, Dave, hoping for looking like dry action from top 16 onwards later on, and if he can just initiate this car into that first scoring zone, he will be safely true to the top 16.
Not sure how effective the tape will be in the wet, Eddie. I've tried this before. When you get the tape wet, it's not quite as effective. But Max Heidrich, if I'm not mistaken, will have to just initiate the first corner here, show that his car is working and that he is able to complete the run, and he would get the win and go through. And in both battles now, we have shown that the weather conditions are going to be the whole story of this top 32. Who can hold their nerve? You don't want to go too tentative and lose. You know, no one wants to go home being too tentative and losing a battle. But if you go too aggressive, then you can make mistakes as well. It looks to me like Andersson went into that first corner, just over-rotated. Heidrich would know where to go. And I think it looks like there's a little bit of damage to the front of Heidrich's wheel as well. So he's kind of going in here a little bit bruised and battered, but he'll take this opportunity, I think, to go test the conditions of this circuit. Because, of course, we will go to the top 16 later on. Look at that, so slippery there. Almost zero grip, and Heidrich dropping wheels off the track. This is almost undrivable right now, Eddie.
Yeah, certainly, Dave. Very little runoff for that water on the circuit as well. So what we're seeing is a lot of standing water, and that could take some time to dry up. And you can just see there, even without the pressure of another driver on the circuit, Heidrich just making contact with the wall there on this run, and really unsettling the car. And certainly a nice opportunity for him just to test those conditions.
What's the strategy now? If you're a driver in this championship, what's the strategy? You can't go out there and go soft because the track doesn't really work that way. Well, we're going to go down to Becky, who is with Joakim Andersson. Becky, it looked like it all went wrong in that first corner. Another driver caught out by the conditions.
Joakim, I'm looking at that first corner and it looks like glass. Can you tell us what happened from inside the car?
Probably, yeah, you are spot on to be exact, because, yeah, I just initiated and then nothing was there to help the rear end to not spin. And then, yeah, just roller coaster out into the wall with Max coming after me, so yeah, just hit some spot or something, but yeah.
From what you can see, is there much damage? It doesn't look too bad, but I'm not the expert here.
The car is used and abused now for 4 rounds, so as you can see, tape and yeah, shear bumpers everywhere, so it has its share deal of damage, so yeah.
Joakim, we'll see you in Germany.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
yeah,
you.
disappointed Joakim Andersson there, Bex. And I'll tell you one thing, Max Heidrich had no idea what was going on. He's gone over to Joakim Andersson saying, I'm not too sure what happened. This is pretty much a good replay of what happened in that first corner. 2 of them were upside down pretty quickly. You know what, it's nice to see the guys being able to smile, but I think both drivers will know straight away. It was just look at the draw there. There was nothing really else other than who was leading, who was chasing. Max Heidrich gets the win and goes through, and Max giving the international symbol for, I had no idea what was going on in that first corner, and he was barely able to complete his byrun.
Yeah, well, interestingly, Dave, what we're seeing now is the advantage really being set in favour of the chase driver here, who gets the chance to just kind of come in a little bit slower. Doesn't have to test the water too much, not as much as the lead driver. And we've seen both first 2 battles in the top 32, the chase driver, the lower qualifier, progressing on to the top 16.
Interesting stuff, and Max Heidrich, who you would expect to be the man kamikazing it in there, took it a little bit more tentative and got away with it. Now we move to Oliver Randalu from Estonia against Paweł Korpuliński. Now Korpuliński is a very tactical driver, and he'll also have his spotter, which are the guys in the pits who are watching everything from the outside, on the radio to him saying, do not go into that first corner and expect it to work the way you think it's going to. You've got to be tentative, because we've just watched it all go wrong for Joakim Andersson, and he was almost the guinea pig now for the rest of the grid. Oliver Randalu, well, he says, I want to take the inside line to a certain extent on the first corner, so I'm not at risk the same way that Korpuliński is. It's so tense. I mean, I've never felt a top 32 where it's so knife edge, and we might even have any battle come by us here in the tower for the whole top 32. We just need to get through that first corner as Oliver Randalu heads into the chase position. Korpuliński, big qualifying run from him yesterday. Can he put it down in that first corner? Here we go.
Well, wipers on, full blast as the rain continues to pour here in Riga, and look at this. What a line here from Paweł Korpuliński, but Oliver Randalu not leaving an inch between the 2 cars as now they try to just transition and come big up onto the curb. There goes Paweł Korpuliński as Randalu, just a passenger in that rear position again, just touches of Piotr Więcek there as Paweł Korpuliński goes back onto the curb now. How can he manage the wall section? You can just see how tentative it is here for these drivers as they feather the throttle just to try and keep those cars on angle, Dave. It is knife edge stuff out there.
Absolutely, and of course you're going to be wondering straight away, why are they going so slow in some areas of the track? Well, the more perfect you are, the slower you get, because all of that rubber that's been laid down for the last 2 days has now covered those areas of the wide line of the track where those clipping boxes are, which means that when you go onto those, they are the slippiest parts of the track. If you're on the inside of the track like you saw Randalu at the end, it's actually got more grip. So as they come through the first corner, you can see Korpuliński struggling. He does a good job here of coming in early on the handbrake, does what he needs to do, gets to that outer zone. I'm absolutely blown away by the precision here in these conditions from Korpuliński, but he falls into the same problem that Piotr Więcek finds. As they go wider on the track, watch this, he comes out to the wide line, you can see the back end of the car start to speed up without him on throttle at all, and all of a sudden once you hit that curb, no grip whatsoever, and he does very well to keep it out of the dirt there. but the car just goes super light here. He bounces up on the curb, gets a little bit of traction actually from the gravel to get him back across the line, and then he goes back out like Więcek had done in his first battle, out on the track again. And where it seems to be the hardest part for the chase car is that last outer zone 6, because you're on an inside line, they're out on the wall, and there seems to be no grip whatsoever, so it's almost slow motion. Right now it looks to me like Oliver Randalu taking a small advantage here, but he's got to do all that lead running now, so that's going to be where it all balances off.
That's it. That's where the problem now becomes for Oliver Randalu in that lead position. He has all the problems that Korpuliński just faced. How can he handle them as we reverse order here? Looks like he's going for a hot entry here. Lots of speed from Oliver Randalu as he throws on big angle. David manages to hold it. Does drop a wheel though at the very end of outside zone 1 here. But can he keep this one going as Paweł Korpuliński now starts to close the gap and just reel him in? Big angle from both drivers. And this really impressive stuff, as we've seen just how treacherous it can be. Both drivers now dropping wheels up onto that curb. But you know what, Dave? This has been real commitment from both drivers as they try and find that line into the final outer zone. Tags the wall as Oliver Randalu. Korpuliński now applying the pressure, and as they cross the line, you know what, Dave?
Yeah, I don't
You're
know
just holding on for the ride here.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone knew what was going on in that one. And you could see Korpuliński in the chase position. It was almost trying to avoid Randalu's sort of random transitions. And Randalu, every time he got to the outer line, again, same problem. He had no grip whatsoever. This is a very brave entry from Oliver Randalu. I'm not sure what he was thinking here. He went right to the edge of the circuit, and he actually held it pretty well, but the car wouldn't come back. He stayed out there until he drops almost 2 wheels over the white line and transitions back, misses the next outer zone, and I think he misses the inner zone as well. So that's not as clean a lead that Korpuliński had, but then Korpuliński was riding the curbs, Oliver Randalu was riding the curbs. The judges are going to need abacus here just to put all the mistakes left and right, but to me it looked like one of the bigger mistakes was coming down to that last wall from Randalu when he gets deep here, as you can see, up on the curb. Again, the only traction out there is when you're off the track. It seems to be catapulting out of that certain section as Korpuliński trying to deal with it. Both of them go up onto the curbs here, big bumps on the suspension. But going into that last zone for me, Randalu gets a real check up here. This is where I'm starting to see a big mistake. He goes up on the curb, rides it, and watch the transition from Randalu. Tries to handbrake early, car doesn't react the way he wants, and he's out of that zone for a very long time. Now watch when he goes into it, he gets real slippy, boom, hits the wall. So he actually has a lot of mistakes here where he uses the wall almost like a crutch as he gets through the whole rest of the run, running the whole wall. There's running the wall and there's leaning on the wall. He was leaning on the wall. So let's see which way the judges go on this one. And it looks to me like it's going to be a one more time for Oliver Randalu and Paweł Korpuliński. I'm going to you, Kevin. Kevin, it looked to me like just so many mistakes there that we didn't know what to make of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It just came down to so many mistakes. I don't think I could even list them all out here, but basically it came down to, in our opinion, I think lead for lead and chase for chase. I think Korpuliński had a very slightly better lead. Randalu had a little bit more aggressive of a chase run. Realistically, we'd be splitting hairs with all the mistakes to try and find a winner out of it, so we have to see him go one more time.
I'm inclined to agree, Kev. I think that one just, when we don't know what's going on, it's usually a decision for the judges, and I think that was one that just, there was nothing great happened in either one. Let's just get people used to the condition. And this is a big one as well. James, the machine Deane, sits on the line, higher qualifier than Kevin Piskolty. Piskolty's in the championship race. Deane is not in the championship race, and he said he'd love a bit of rain today. That's what he said yesterday. An expert in the rain, but I don't think anyone can be an expert on these conditions. James Deane will be. These are a very similar car to 2JZ powered E92s. Kevin Piskolty, chasing the top 10 in the championship, now goes up against his biggest foe this year so far, which is James Deane on a treacherous Riga circuit, which is also the most treacherous track of the year. This one is going to be fireworks from the off. Can Deane prove that he's been around the block and knows these conditions, or will he fall to the same fate as Więcek? We're about to find out. Hold your breath.
Well, if ever there was a man you could have confidence in the wet, it would be James Deane. But look at this from Piskolty, straight from the off, showing that aggression on that very inside line, though, as James Deane doesn't get as full into that outer zone 1 as we would like to see. Now starts to get it together, though, as he starts to find the grip on that circuit, as Piskolty struggles to keep with Deane. Deane now switches back, and again finding the perfect line here as he comes out to outside zone 5, nicely into 6. And you know what, Dave? He said he was confident there would be a bit of rain here, and certainly proving that as Piskolty now tries to close the gap here through the final sections, but Deane looking really strong in that lead position.
It's incredible how he made that look like it was absolutely fine out there, because we've watched the last couple of runs, and James Deane came in and did what would have been a very high-scoring run in the rain in qualifying. He came out, he hit most of the zones, no major errors. Piskolty, to me, looked like he went to the inside of the track to try and get the proximity, but what he also got was a lot more grip than Deane had, which made he had to sort of lurch, surge, and forward all the time. And I think from the first corner, Piskolty was having issues. Watch this, he's on the inside of the track here. does a good job of getting that proximity, but he's dropping in and straightening up, and that's a big error through that first corner from Kevin Piskolty. James Deane, no such issues, and I can't believe how wide he is on the track. You know, especially here when you look at this inner zone to outer zone, this is where everybody's been up on the curve here, but Deane absolutely expertly pilots it through there. That's phenomenal stuff from James Deane. You've got to say, I mean, we've just watched some of the best in the business try and get around that circuit, and they just couldn't, and James has come out there and made it look a lot easier than it is.
Yeah, and this part of the run as well for me is huge, because again, avoiding the curb here, and look how wide and deep into that outer zone he goes. Perfect transition back into the final zone, tucks up onto the wall, and from there, it's just comfort for him all the way to the finish line.
You can see him using the left foot brake on the car just to adjust to the grip levels, and as they come around this very last section, I think there's almost puddles there on top of all that rubber. It's almost like it's in slow motion when you're finishing the run. So we switch him around. It will be James Deane in the chase position. It'll be Kevin Piskolty in the lead position. From where I'm sitting, looks to me like James Deane's put in a phenomenal lead run. That's what Kevin Piskolty from Hungary is going to have to do now. He's going to have to go out there and be brave and be incredible, because that's the only way he's going to take down the machine.
Well, he knows he doesn't have a great chase run, so he's got to be better now in the lead position than James Deane was, which is an absolutely impossible task, almost. And look, straight from the off, a spin, just couldn't match that angle, couldn't match the speed, couldn't match that wide line that Deane had put down in the lead position, and Piskolty throws it into a spin, and James Deane marches off into the distance, and he knows that's him comfortably into the top 16.
Yeah, and I mean, when you always start as the chase car and you end the lead as the lead car, you know it's been a pretty good run, right? Because you're the only one that survived it. I think Kevin Piskolty went for the big run on the first corner. I don't think it's there. I don't think on this track it's there. But looking at James Deane in that last wall section, it's almost at 0 miles an hour. I mean, how these guys are going to get around there chasing comfortably is going to be very difficult to see. The track completely waterlogged now, and James Deane doing everything he can to test the conditions here. As he knows, they might be similar when they get to a top 16, but they also could be completely different. Kevin Piskolty will throw his hands in the area and say, that was my mistake. I went into that first corner way too hot, way too wide, and watch, he just gets to the edge of the circuit. Now he has no grip, puts the throttle on, and then he's gone. Deane, look at Deane, he knows he's gone. Deane actually does a good job of avoiding him in the chase position. Piskolty will be spinning his way out of the top 32 here, I would imagine. Oh, that's very close.
The evasive action, even in the wet, is hugely impressive, that he was managed to find grip there and get himself out of that one, because that could have been quite a serious accident. As we go to the judges to make it official, Dave.
Yeah, James Deane's going to get the win here. Pretty obvious one. The judges haven't had an easy time so far in this top 32, but on that one, you can see James Deane communicating with Kevin Piskolty saying, I don't know what I did. I went in way too hot, way too much angle, spun out in front of you, and James Deane all smiles. He's saying, I'm just barely touching the throttle going around there, and Deane gets the win and goes through to our top 16, and Kevin Piskolty will have to bow out, and that's another, you know, high championship contender in Więcek and Piskolty out in top 32. And here's another lining up on the start line, Lauri Heinonen. He's got most of his fans. I think Finland closed officially this weekend, just put a sign and said we're back Monday, as they're all here in Latvia to cheer him on. But that said, Lauri Heinonen has to deal with just as difficult conditions as everyone else, and I'm just saying right now, it seems like the higher you are in the championship, the earlier you leave at the next round. That's just the way it's been all year. Lauri Heinonen now, can he catch up on Conor Shanahan by getting through this top 16? His championship very much on the line as well. But Lauri Heinonen knows that Paweł Grosz in the wet, a very competent driver, someone who really could make a name for himself here by taking down one of the top level drivers in the series, climb himself up the ranks in that beautiful GT86. Lauri Heinonen, what does he approach that first corner like? He's got to be some level of cautiousness, and there's somewhere between Więcek and Deane is where we're looking at, you know, going too hot versus being that little bit more calculated. Heinonen will have had the radio message saying Deane's done a good run, but he's been tentative out there. He's not overcommitting. Do not overcommit on that first corner. But Paweł Grosz is going to try and turn the screw here and get right up all up in his business. Here we go, top 32 battle, Finland versus Poland, and it is Heinonen to lead in Grosz.
Yes, here comes Heinonen. Huge pressure on his shoulders now, as the championship's hopes are very much alive, but they could all fall to pieces here if he could lose out to Grosz. But Grosz making errors now in the chase position. No such issues here for Lauri Heinonen, as he looks as if there's no wet patches on that circuit at all, looking so comfortable. Look at the line, Dave, that he's managing to create here for himself. Flies around the circuit, possibly the fastest run we've seen from any of our drivers so far. Lauri Heinonen just eating up the circuit, but here comes Grosz now through the final sections, manages to find some proximity, but is it too late?
Yeah, big mistake from Grosz through outer zone 1 to 2. And I'll tell you one thing, a lot of questions being asked of Lauri Heinonen this year. Is he good enough? Is he the man that's going to take this championship home? You know, is it a flash in the pan? Has he just had a good run for a couple of rounds? Well, to me, to go out in this kind of drive conditions in this, and he's been faster and more aggressive than anybody out there. And I'm taking James Deane into consideration there. Heinonen was far faster around the circuit. And you know what? He took a risk here and it paid off. Grosz on that transition gets pinned on the inside here, loses traction. That's a big mistake. And if to me, that looks like an opposite drift, which would be an incomplete run. It would be a 0. I'm not sure if the judges would see it that way, but we're getting a couple of nods our way, which, yeah, the opposite drift, you don't want to be doing that. He kind of straightened up for a long period of time there, meaning all Heinonen has to do now in the chase position is just keep it smooth, keep it tidy, and he'll go to the top 16 and start putting all that pressure on Conor Shanahan.
Yeah, we may see Lauri Heinonen just hold back a little bit, allow Grosz some room to manoeuvre as we switch it around. But you can just see again, watching this replay, Dave, how good is he in that lead position? So fast through the circuit.
How he's finding the pace that, I mean, if Więcek can't find the pace and Lauri Heinonen can, that's got to be bravery, right? Because we all know these guys are going pretty fast either way, and they're all pretty much on the same grip setups and engine setups. Lauri Heinonen, of course, running over 1,000 horsepower on the supercharged V8, but now in the chase position, he's got to be clever here. I think he's got to back down a little bit, be professional, be confident, and leave him a little room to maneuver, and that looks what Lauri's doing right now.
Yeah, needs to contain himself, but a little bit late onto the initiation there as he allows now a little bit of a gap to open up. Grosz now doing a nice job in the lead position, and Lauri Heinonen almost gets a little bit caught there, but again, a huge straighten from Paweł Grosz, and I think maybe just handing the advantage once again to Lauri Heinonen here. And could it be the start of a dream weekend here for Lauri Heinonen?
And I think it is, Eddie. He's spun him around, which means Lauri Heinen's going to get the win here. And the Finnish fans, as he waves up to them, will know that they don't need to be expert judges to know that if you're facing the wrong way, you're not facing the top 16. And Lauri Heinonen does a great job there of getting himself through. You know what, as you said, a late initiation, really safe on initiation, making sure of it. But Grosz again on the transition, making an error, and then obviously over-rotating later in the run is going to hand this one to Heinonen. So Heinonen, you know what, he's in second in the championship. Now he's the first man of the real contenders for this championship to go through to the top 16. And I will say that with Więcek out and Deane in, it's getting a little bit mixed up as well, with the wild cards making an impact. But Lauri Heinonen, to much to the delight of the Finnish fans, is more than likely going to see, and I would say a miracle will keep Grosz in this, or we don't know what the rules are, but it looked to me like Grosz puts this on big angle. At this point, I think he's spinning anyway, and the curb didn't help.
No, curb not helping there one bit, as we've seen, you know, so many drivers fall victim to those curbs already this weekend, be it in qualifying or here in top 32 action. You have to say huge pressure now applied to the shoulders of our championship leader, Conor Shanahan, who's been facing mechanical difficulties with his car, not fueling correctly, and now his biggest title contender, title rival so far this year is safely into the top 16.
Yeah, but you know, Conor Shanahan, an expert in the rain too, loves the rain, and you know, likes the wet conditions, so we'll see how it goes. This is going to be an official decision for Lauri Heinonen. He's through to the top 16, no questions asked. And you know, 2 incompletes from Paweł Grosz. He'll be disappointed with that one. But back from war in Germany, Lauri Heinonen, his championship points now start to rack up. Good qualifying session for Lauri Heinonen, 4th in qualifying, which will always rack him up some championship points, and now into the top 16. So business done. Time to take a little break and a little rest for Lauri Heinonen before he heads to a top 16. And this round, I'm telling you, is going to be the turning point of the championship. This is where you throw in one of those mixed condition rounds on a very difficult track, and you start asking the questions of these guys. Are they good enough to take home the championship? And of course, we now move on to the start line with Diogo Correia, fresh from the podium in Finland. And he will go up against Pontus Hartman for looking pretty good in qualifying. Hartman qualifying in 20th, Correia qualifying in 13th. And Correia, we haven't watched him drive too much in the rain, so, you know, not a lot of rain in Portugal, I would imagine.
No, it wouldn't be renowned for it, certainly not.
Yeah,
and,
wouldn't be a place you go looking for it.
No, so that'll be going to be a real test of his ability, and possibly the first time we're going to see him really tested here this weekend. So what can he do in that lead position? Diogo Correia to lead in Pontus Hartman. Here we go, top 32, run one for these guys. Just see them testing the conditions, Dave, as they make their way up. Big handbrake from Diogo Correia, and a big straight as well, getting it all wrong on that first outer zone, Dave.
Yeah, it looked to me like he stalled up completely. He went on too much handbrake and he didn't. Oh, and Pontus Hartman's making mistakes now. He just barely held onto it. Correia's bumper goes over his windscreen. This is wet and wild stuff here in Riga, as Correia's just holding on to a run. A lot of handbrake. I mean, I wouldn't imagine a huge amount of wet weather practice for Diogo Correia. And Pontus Hartman doing a good job of avoiding what could have been a couple of incidents there. I think we're going to come back to that big shutdown between outer zone 1 and 2 for Correia. It would look to me like he just thought there would be more of a transition, and it gripped up massively on the inside of the corner. And Pontus Hartman, you can see that just letting a few exhales out there of like, what happened there? This is a big error.
There was a huge error there in the lead position from Diogo Correia, and you know, you have to ask the question, is there any coming back from that?
Now watch this on the transition, how they don't make bigger contact here. Pontus goes way too deep, and he's on full angle. As Correia comes back, he just boop, takes off the back bumper of Correia's car. It goes up over his windscreen, does a little flip, and lands on the track, and he stays in it. I mean, it's wild stuff here. Let's see if we can see it from this angle. It'll look crazy. The back bumper right out to the curb. Pontus Hartman flying through at speed. Bit of a bump there, and look at this.
It looks
carnage.
impossible. Looks impossible that it's not more serious than a collision there between those two guys.
Pontus Hartman got the biggest window wiper in the world there for a split second as it went up over the windscreen. Now, Pontus Hartman, I'm going to say right now, to me, looks like he has the advantage here. Correia making that big error from outer zone 1 to outer zone 2. Can Pontus just smoothly go through that? Because it looked like Grosz and Correia having the same issue. It's really slippy on the first corner. They go to transition, they expect the car to wash, and all of a sudden it just grips in the middle. And I have a feeling that's happening because the center of the track, less moisture sitting there than the edges of the track. And also, not as much rubber on the center of the track as there is on the outer zones.
Yeah, which makes it hugely more predictable. But we got the second half of this one, and as you say, Pontus Hartman perhaps with a slight advantage going into the second half of this one in the lead position now. What can Diogo Correia do in the chase position? Can he apply some pressure and force a mistake? Well, the lead line not great for Pontus Hartman here as he shallows up quite dramatically as he exits that outside zone 1. But now as they come in front of the grandstand, he starts to open up a little bit of a gap over Correia. He'll be looking to try and close that through the latter sections, but his line's just not great. But look at this from Hartman. He throws it up onto the curb and throws it away, perhaps, Dave.
Yeah, that's starting to look a little bit like a one more time. Well, did Correia straighten enough for a 0? We definitely knew he had an advantage. Was it an incomplete? I am not too sure if he did enough. The judges are going to have a real long.
Yeah, look, I think that's what it's going to come down to. Was it enough? Was that straighten from Correia enough to warrant a 0 in the first run from these two guys?
Well, it's definitely a 0 from Hartman. There's no question of that.
Absolutely.
He's facing the wrong way. But Correia on the first run, that 1 to 2, was it an incomplete? What way will it look? He's gone already here. The curb only helps the matter, but I think Hartman's going too fast either way. And you know what? He didn't need to do it. He could have just stayed super slow and smooth, and he probably would have got the win. But this track, I don't know how drivable it is. I mean, you're looking at top-level internationals here that are phenomenally good. I mean, these are the guys, you know, doing incredible qualifying runs yesterday on the dry. Now looking like, you know, they're barely able to get around. So to me, Pontus Hartman, once you hit those curbs, I think that is going to be the end of your weekend, especially this one, because you're on full angle already, and it just extends that, and you run out of steering angle. But yeah, and it's so harsh on the suspension when you come off it as well. Every time I see the slow-mo camera, I just fear for those rear fenders getting absolutely smashed.
Yeah, those rear suspensions are just working so hard.
Well, we know now when the decision comes in that if it's a one more time, it's 2 incompletes, or did Diogo Correia just about get away with it? That's going to be the decision for the judges, and it is Diogo Correia getting the win and going through. And just quickly, Kevin, back to you. So just not an incomplete for Correia, but he must have been flirting with it.
Yeah, absolutely. It all comes down to those big mistakes, and what we had to analyse here was that an incomplete for Correia? And per our rule book, short straightens or corrections are a large deduction, but you don't actually get an incomplete until you actually stop drifting. So Pontus Hartman did have an incomplete because he had 2 wheels off and almost a spin. Unfortunately, Diogo Correia didn't, so he goes through to the top 16.
It's all about surviving, Kev. It's all about surviving out there today. Don't spin, don't go off the track, don't straighten. And even if you are just on the borderline like Diogo Correia, you can just about get through. So, yeah, we spotted that one. And again, Correia making the big error, but the biggest error was Hartman. And we go back to the one more time between Oliver Randalu and Paweł Korpuliński. There was about 4,000 errors in this battle, so the judges said, we ran out of ink, we don't know what way it's going to go, we're going one more time. But the good thing is, this is the second battle these guys will have in these conditions, so they're going to get better, they're going to learn very fast. I think Korpuliński's going to learn a lot from that first 2 runs.
Certainly will. Korpuliński, very experienced driver, a lot of experience under his belt, so he's going to be feeling confident that these two guys, they've had an opportunity. But look at Randalu in the chase position here, very aggressive, trying to get up on the door and make some moves early on, but Korpuliński unfazed by what's happening behind him. His focus is everything in front of him and nailing that lead line. But look at this from Oliver Randalu as he transitions back right behind him, leaves Korpuliński enough space, but Korpuliński now falling victim to the curbs once again, getting deep into that outer zone, but too deep from where the judges are standing, and manages just to keep it going. But look at this with the proximity. It's getting scrappy once again from these two, Dave.
Yeah, and why it's so slippy, because of all that rubber down. I had a good chat about this with one of the drivers. What happens is the rubber goes down, it fills all the crevices in the tarmac. So you imagine tarmac, it's porous, right? The water goes through the tarmac eventually underneath. That's why tarmac just doesn't have water on it forever. But if you put rubber on it, it seals the top. So the water sits on top and it has nowhere to go. So what you get is an aquaplaning effect, like you see Korpuliński doing here. He went out to the edge. There's no grip there. He's just falling through the track. And unfortunately, he goes out onto it. But he does get a little bit of grip as he goes up on the curb and keeps the car in drift. But it's not what you want to see. And look at the sparks from the exhaust under the car here on the slow-mo phantom camera. as he obliterates the cones. They were just minding their own business there. I thought they were having a great day. Next thing, boom, Korpuliński taking them out.
Yeah, just having a quick chat, those cones in the wet, just enjoying themselves, enjoying the view, and then bang.
They thought they had best seat in the house, but now they just got smashed by a bumper in the face. But I'll tell you the one thing Korpuliński does well here is not spin out like Hartman did. He just keep it in the fight. Randalu has a good chase, like he's close, but it's very sketchy. It's surgy, and there's a lot of wibbly-wobbly stuff going on there in the back. So I'm not sure how clean that was either. So mistakes again from both of these guys. But you know what? On a day like today, we'll allow it. We're not going to be too critical because then, oh, it looks like we have an exhaust on the ground from Randalu here, if I'm not mistaken. Something on the ground.
Yeah, certainly.
Could be one of those cones actually stuck underneath. I'm not sure.
No, I think you may be right, David. It does look as though it is an exhaust. It's got the right shape, the right lineup of an exhaust. Yeah, you can just see it hanging down there.
Yeah, he's doing a little bit of scraping on the ground, and the Starlight Marshal will have to have a quick look at that and see what can be done. As Paweł Korpuliński, I would have assumed he would have the exhaust on the ground. He was so deep into the gravel, but it looks like Randalu had the same issue in the chase, and the exhaust is on the ground, which could eliminate him from competition here if the car is deemed unsafe to run. Remember, in Drift Masters, you start the runs and you finish the runs. These cars have to complete 2 runs without any mechanical repairs, I guess, and they have a little 2-minute, or you can do a bumper, you can put a bit of tape on, you can aesthetically get the car right if the marshals can fix it, but you can't go back to the pits to do any major repairs, and that's the rule book here in Drift Masters. Keeps the show moving fast, which we like. It also can be very harsh on the drivers but then again, when you think about it in drifting, these cars really only need to do 3, at maximum 2 minutes of drifting. You know what I mean? From start to finish run. And that's a lot going on in those 2 minutes, but at the same time, we're expecting these cars to be able to stay together. So if you've knocked your exhaust off, you've made the error. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of the idea behind the rule book, is that you've done it. And I think if Oliver Randalu is getting out of the car here, he's being informed by those marshals that he cannot continue if the exhaust is on the ground.
Yeah, I think this could be bad news here for Oliver Randalu. It doesn't look, there's a lot of conversation, there's a lot of explanation. Yeah, shakes of the head there from our start line marshals. And you know what, Dave?
I've seen this happen before.
I've watched enough Drift Masters to know.
Yeah, you start to read the writing on the wall when your car is unsafe to continue. You can see consolation from they can see Marson there signaling the exhaust on the ground, unsafe to continue. The exhaust you cannot run the car with the exhaust dragging along the ground because, it's obviously not together. And again, that's the other side of this track, is that it is hard on the cars, and you're 4 rounds in and everything's held together with hopes and dreams at this point. And you know what, Korpuliński might get a really lucky rub of the green here and get himself a bye run to get himself through to the top 16. I have never seen so much drama and one half of a top 32 before.
Yeah, I mean, we've only got through, what, 5, 6 battles so far, and already the drama has been crazy. But I think, you know what, that could be a huge get-out-of-jail-free card for Paweł Korpuliński.
Yeah, he made some errors there, and he's going to get away with it, but he survived it, and he went up deep into the curbs, but his exhaust did not fall off. His car stayed going, and it mechanically was okay, so therefore he'll be given a bye run down the track. And Oliver Randalu, I mean, to go out with an exhaust dislodged, I mean, it's happened before in Drift Masters many times. We've seen this happen before. I remember it was Conor Shanahan, I think I remember once with Steve Baggs-Biagioni. These little errors, just something falling off or something breaking in the burnout box even, I remember it's happened, and they cannot continue. You're expected to come to the line with a working car and finish the battle to the result with a working car with everything attached. Bumpers, body panels, yeah, we can work with those, but any mechanical parts of the car, they cannot be fixed.
It seems harsh, but when you say it out loud, Dave, it makes absolute sense. These cars are expected to go in at huge speed.
Yeah,
they need to be safe.
Exactly. I mean, Oliver Randalu go in there with no front wheels on the car because he wants to compete. But obviously, if the exhaust is dragging on the ground, it's going to go under the wheel of a car. Something's going to happen, or Paweł Korpuliński is going to run over it, or something bad could happen, especially when this track is so treacherous. So Paweł Korpuliński loves that curb. He absolutely loves that curb.
Really enjoys the curbs. It's just like a roller coaster ride out there for him. But again, Dave, just another opportunity for him to get some very important track time out in this service. If the rain does continue into the top 16, no one will have had more laps of this circuit so far anyway than Paweł Korpuliński.
Yeah, I mean,
looking comfortable despite some of those curb drops.
And you know what, he's going to tidy that up as things progress. But I think the one thing I'm noticing is that, when the rain does stop, which it will stop today, how quickly will the track dry? Does it get patchy? Does it get worse? Because drivers will always say, I'd rather it full wet or full dry, but in the middle, that's when it's even worse. I don't know what's worse than what we're seeing out now, but it is going to be Paweł Korpuliński from Poland getting the win and going through to our top 16 in unusual fashion, as Oliver Randalu, who had an engine failure in practice, put another engine back in the car and now goes off, his exhaust fell off. I mean, what a harsh weekend for Oliver Randalu. As we go back to the start line, it's the battle of the new youngsters in the championship. One of those from Poland and the other from Israel. Not often the matchup you see here in Drift Masters. Itay Sadeh against Eryk Goczał. from Poland, and Eryk Goczał having a huge 70-mile-an-hour dead-stop crash in practice on Friday. Translated a lot of the parts to his spare car, which he hasn't driven in a couple of years. Itay Sadeh punching the window with excitement. I'm not sure how much rain there is in Israel, but there's plenty of it here in Latvia, and he's going to have to adapt to it pretty well, as we will see these two youngsters. And I remember the names. These are the guys you're going to be cheering for in the next couple of years in this championship, because one is only 16, and Goczał only 18 years of age as they come down the track, and who knows what's going to happen next. Big early initiation from Eryk Goczał. It's very brave, and it looks like it's going to work for him here as he goes into that first corner. And Itay Sadeh, a little bit caught by that, had to be a little bit more aggressive, but a big transition from Itay as he takes a big risk on the inside of the track. Now, this is where everyone's having trouble with that slippery outer line. You can see Eryk Goczał doing a great job here of getting through those wet weather conditions. And Eryk Goczał looks like he's on rails here as Itay Sadeh very tentative. Oh, and a big stall up from Eryk Goczał going in, and a bigger stall up from Itay Sadeh as it all falls apart in that outer zone 6. It looks like Eryk Goczał handling the conditions far better than the Israeli as he spins the car at the end of the run. He was 20 feet from home, Eddie, but he's now got an incomplete.
Yeah, it was almost there. You know what? A nice lead run, I think, from Goczał, but I think at some moments, particularly that entry, just making it a little bit tricky for the chase car to try and figure out what exactly what was coming. Not the most overly predictable thing in the world, but you know what? Loving that wide line, very fast through the circuit. And Goczał.
So yeah, Eryk Goczał doing a pretty good job there of staying in that. I mean, look, very James Deane-like here, going for big angle on, but he actually makes it work. Itay Sadeh, look, watch they both come into this section. You can see the tarmac changes here, different level of asphalt, and both of them just go, I don't know what's going on. They all both stall up, but this is the big mistake. This is the one that the judges are thankful happened, because Itay goes wide to try and catch up, but he gets onto the slippery outer line and he spins the car out. And up until then, the judges were probably thinking, oh, it's another one of those. There's mistakes both sides. Eryk's had a big stall up into outer zone 6, but I think Eryk Goczał will take a score from that run. Looks to me like Itay Sadeh will have an incomplete, meaning that all Eryk Goczał's got to do is just complete a run. Easier said than done. As we said the same about Pontus Hartman earlier on, it's not as easy as just getting around.
Yeah, certainly no such thing as just completing a run around this circuit here, wet or dry, but treacherous today as we leave the line. It is Itay Sadeh now in the lead position with Goczał chasing him furiously here, trying to just maintain some proximity. Nice lead line from the youngster. Itay Sadeh doing a nice job, knows he has that spin on the first run, and oh, too hot as he comes in front of the grandstand, Dave, and just gets up onto those curbs. We've seen what happens when you flirt with the rough here, flirt with the outer line here. It just can all go wrong so quickly, and it looks as though that may be 2 nails in the coffin for Itay Sadeh.
I think Itay Sadeh, I'll be happy to sit this one out and from here on in. I don't think that the conditions suiting him very well there. And as Eryk Goczał, you know, he did a good job of avoiding that, but at one point they were both in the washing machine going around. No damage, thankfully, to both cars, but we could have had a big pile up, big scrapyard on outer zone 4. And look at this as he comes through Itay Sadeh. This is far too quick here for that outer line. Look as he picks up more speed right here, back end completely gone. And Eryk Goczał is like, uh-oh. And how they didn't make contact there, I have absolutely no idea, because they were both spinning wildly out of control. Watch this from the other angle. He's gone to the edge of the track, Goczał's spinning around, and both of them are just passengers in the cars. They've been on the Walsters, Ed.
Yes, but you had that one called, Dave, right from inside clip 3. I think you gave me the nod as if to say, this ain't going to work.
No, there's no speed that you can carry through at that speed there. You've got to be a little bit more clever. I think Itay will gather some experience from this and understand that in the wet in Riga, you got to be a little bit more tentative than going full speed like you do in the dry. And the decisions will drop in. Eryk Goczał getting the win, going through to the top 16. He's had 2 very good rounds in a row. He was a standout star in Finland, and here he is back again. You wouldn't even know he had a 70-mile-an-hour crash on Friday. Here he is into the top 16. Drift Masters doesn't have to make sense. You go into, imagine I thought he was not going to drive again this weekend, because that's a huge hit. And look at him jumping around there. I'll tell you what, if I was in the crash he was in on Friday at my age, Ed, I would be probably in bed for a couple of weeks just saying it's not for me, but he's out here trying to win the event. Unbelievable.
You know what, Dave? Probably intensive care, a man of your age.
I would imagine. You know, sometimes just getting up the stairs to the tower is enough for me. These kids out there absolutely smashing it. And we got the boys out doing a little bit of casual sweeping.
Yeah, you can just see the volume of water that's just built up onto the circuit. But you know what, Dave? We have a huge battle sitting on the start line. Zalewski coming up against Duane McKeever. Duane McKeever in the championship hunt, but has to take down Adam Zalewski to avoid exiting competition at top 32 2 events in a row. This is huge for both these guys.
Yeah, I don't think Duane McKeever has ever exited the competition at top 32 level twice in a row, but the other thing is Adam Zalewski's had a massive amount of mechanical issues with his car this year. Both of these guys not having the straightforward season, and if they exit here either way, Zalewski would feel that he's had the harshest season of all time, where McKeever, if he wants to stay in the championship hunt, he has to win this battle. That's it. If he's out of this, he's out of it for the rest of the year. So McKeever's going to have to go for it. An expert in the rain, so is Zalewski. Here we go into that first corner. Zalewski fires wide, not a lot of angle. Clever from Zalewski, and McKeever right there with him. Now McKeever starting to get that proximity, but he's very close to the curb in the chase position, making some errors. And Zalewski going wide. Zalewski's got too wide here. He's off the track, and you can see straight away that was the wrong line from Zalewski. McKeever somehow keeps the car on angle. I don't know how he kept that one going as they wibble wobble down to outer zone 6. As you can see, no grip here whatsoever. Oh, and a big hit from McKeever. Didn't need to do it, and he's upset Zalewski in the lead position. I don't know what to make of that, but it looks to me like Zalewski making a big error in the first half of the course, but I'm not sure what happened, but McKeever hitting him at the end, and that's wheel to wheel. So is there damage to the front end of both of these cars right now, Eddie?
Yeah, well, look, as we take a look back at it here on the replay, both drivers splitting that inner zone there, both of them getting it wrong. Zalewski goes deep up onto the curb. How McKeever avoids the spin here. Look at the angle, completely gets it out of that spin and gets it back running again, but look how far Zalewski is up onto the curb here.
Is it 2 wheels off the track? Is it two wheels in the dirt?
It's looking like 3, Dave, for me.
Yeah, 3 in the dirt, and that's going to be a massive deduction, and McKeever almost can't chase that. And Zalewski looks to me like he makes the big error. So it's 2 wheels off, and that means an incomplete for Adam Zalewski. Judges just giving us the nod there. So does Duane McKeever incomplete when he hits Zalewski here? I wouldn't say so. Let's see what happens. Zalewski, does he go on too much angle here?
I think he hits the wall.
He hits the wall, that's it. Yeah, so Zalewski hits the wall slow. Zalewski's almost spinning there. That's an over-rotation. So you could say almost 2 incompletes. On the second look, which is great that we have so many camera angles here, Eddie, because it makes us look like experts when we get it wrong the first time and we correct it the second time. That's definitely Zalewski at fault on both of those, and McKeever with a big advantage, and now he's in the lead position. Can he just get around the track? Well, that seems to be the hardest thing any of these drivers are doing today. Yeah,
well, hopefully less errors this time around, because it's just so hard for your brain to keep up with exactly what was going on that first run.
Yeah, there was a lot of rough and tumble.
But it looks as though going into the second half of this one that it will be McKeever now with the advantage. And can he just keep this car out of trouble in the lead position? Well, if any man can do it, it is Duane McKeever. Zalewski needs to find something special here to try and get himself into a top 16, to try and reignite his championship hunt, to try and get himself some positive outcomes from Drift Masters in 2023. But Duane McKeever now on a blinder of a lead run. Look at this from the Irishman as he just blitzes through the circuit. Oh, but Duane McKeever spins, Dave. Duane McKeever spins in front of the grandstand just when it looked as though he was waltzing his way into a top 16.
That's your fault, Eddie. That was your fault. Blitzing through the track, he said. Easy peasy, and then it just goes to show, even when it's that comfortable in the lead, any moment on this track, and I think that's going to send this one to a one more time.
You know what, Dave? That's exactly what it's going to do. I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. A one more time between these two guys. And you know what? Who's your money on? Because right now, neither of them looking overly confident out there.
Yeah, well, neither have got through outer zone 4 without injury. And I'll tell you one thing, Duane McKeever, he wasn't really under much pressure here. You know, he came through too fast, Eddie. Like this, again, as I said, you can see it from here. If you're at that pace, it's just not going to work. Gone. Back end of the car is gone before he even gets there. Completely loses traction. Zalewski's like, I can't believe my luck. Has he just spun the car in front of me? And from where I'm sitting, it looks like both of these drivers having the mistake at the same part of the track, which means we're going to have to rack him up again and go at it again. And McKeever getting out of the car, he can't believe the mistake.
You know what? He can't believe it. I don't think Adam Zalewski can believe it either. Zalewski holds his hands up in the air as if to say, and you can just see it, Dave, both drivers shaking their head. They're saying to each other, there is literally no grip there at that clip. Outer zone 4, just like ice for these two guys. They tried to carry the pace in.
Yeah, I think both of them make the same mistake at the same time, which makes the obvious decision a one more time. And you know what? I think both of them will take it at this stage because no one was looking comfortable there.
No, neither of them looking comfortable. But you know what? For these two guys, top-level drivers, they've had an opportunity now. They'll know that there's no grip at outer zone 5, or outer zone 4, rather. They'll know to back off there, Dave. I think they're comfortable on the rest of the circuit as they head back into the pits just to reassess. But you know what? I, for one, not too disappointed to get to see these two guys go at it one more time. So we move it on to the second half of
Yeah, another huge battle for the championship. Conor Shanahan sits on the start line, and Conor Shanahan right now has watched all of his competitors that he is fighting it out with for the championship absolutely fall apart. And the only man looking really comfortable at the moment is Lauri Heinonen and James Deane. And Conor Shanahan now, he's an expert in the rain, but is there such a thing as an expert on this track? Because he could spin this on outer zone 4 and throw his entire championship away. Because Alex Holovnia, a very, very experienced driver from Kiev in Ukraine, and he's been driving in the USA this year. He's got lots of laps under his belt and a very fast car, very capable driver. This is a big challenge for Conor Shanahan here.
Well, here we go, about to find out, can Conor Shanahan keep with the conditions, and is that car working? We saw him have problems, no issues so far it seems, but look at this as Holovnia throws it in behind, but throws it away, trying to keep close to Conor Shanahan. Shanahan now looking nice and comfortable. How can he fare when he comes by the grandstand at outer zone 4? No issues for Conor Shanahan, and expert in the way.
Super clever driving. He hit the front brakes there, and they just let the car settle before it went through that. He's been watching. A lot of these drivers will have their phones in the car, watching the previous runs, just like you guys are at home, and they'll say, well, I'm not going to make that mistake. Alex Holovnia makes contact with Conor Shanahan and makes a huge error. Looks to me like that will be an incomplete for Alex Holovnia. Music to the Shanahan's ears at the moment, but again, just like the run before it, when you think Duane McKeever is going through with no question, he can't even make a lap. So there's no way you're going to get through to the top 16 here until it's right till the last zone and you come across that finish line.
Certainly. So Conor Shanahan, as we see, putting on that really nice lead line, looking very comfortable out there. Huge sigh of relief. As you see, Holovnia just not being able to manage the conditions.
Yeah, just kamikaze through the first corner, hit Shanahan, then went off the track, took a cone for a little bit of a spin.
Well, look, he's leaving the line, Dave, knowing that he's got to go close, got to go hard. Shanahan's going to give him that good line to follow.
Yeah, he absolutely just lost it all. I mean, understeer.
Just at the end of the zone as well, so unfortunate for him.
Yeah, leaves the cone in the middle of the track. Kevin O'Connell saying that is not a new clipping point that he has created in the middle of the track. That is not regulation. You're not allowed to do it. And Alex Holovnia, well, you can see hands in the air there. He knows he's made the error and made the mistake. How low is that car, by the way, that BMW? It's absolutely on the floor. It looks so cool. Full carbon Kevlar, and it's a good thing it is carbon Kevlar, because it was picking up a couple of hits there, as Conor Shannon's car has been hit by every driver on the grid at this stage in round 4, but he's still in the run, and he's getting that little run back. I think for Conor Shannon right now, the rain's starting to fall a little heavier here. This is the time where if you want to win the championship, you've got to be clever. You can't overcommit. His team have been on the radio saying, you've got an incomplete, Conor, just get the job done. Easier said than done.
Well, if there is a sensible driver on this grid, it is Conor Shannon. He knows when to attack and when to hold back. You can see just not pushing himself to the outer lines, allowing Holovnia just, you know, make the mistakes in front of him. But Holovnia now doing a good job. But Shannon, all he needs to do is just stay within touching distance, just keep himself in this one, and he should have a spot in the top 16. Holovnia, though, you can see just how treacherous as he battles, trying to find the grip, makes that transition. It just looks so sketchy, but finds the wall now a little bit late through that final section. But look where it is for Conor Shannon, right on the door, as he just applies the pressure right at the right moment.
You know what, the big story for me so far, and I'm going to assume Conor Shannon is going to take this one through to the top 16. The big story for me is Heinonen and Shanahan now. Both of them have had terrible conditions, very unusual surface patches here on the track, and if they want that championship, these are the moments that you've got to overcome to be the best in the business, and both of them, to me, look like they've done that better than anyone who's in the championship hunt. Of course, James Deane is in there looking great as usual, but he's not in that championship fight. He's just a wild card this weekend. But Lauri Heinonen and Conor Shannon looking like they ain't going to fall down here. They're not going to make big errors or big mistakes. And Conor Shannon, to me, look at that. He's just sitting on the handbrake going, I am not overcommitting to any part of this circuit. Holovnia was on a flyer there, to be fair, up onto the curbs. He does good, but it's too little too late with that big understeer and off the track on the first half of the battle. And the championship fight between Heinonen and Conor Shannon still wide open as we head to this top 16, because I'm going to assume that smile on the face of Conor Shannon and that little fist pump, because he knows I got through it, I won it, and I'm in the top 16, and Conor Shanahan ready to rock and roll later today. And while we have a minute, Kevin O'Connell, just a quick one just to clarify on that outer curve where we have all the muck and the dirt, is that 2 wheels off zero there in that situation?
Yes, Dave, it is 2 wheels off as a zero there, but anywhere where there's a curb, the driver has to put 2 wheels over that curb to constitute actually getting that incomplete run. So they can put their wheels up on it, they will receive a deduction for it, but they won't actually receive an incomplete until they put 2 wheels in the dirt.
Thanks, Kev. Nice to clarify that. And Becky Evans is down with Conor Shannon. He's into the top 16, Becky, and it's just beautiful weather out there.
Beautiful weather. I don't think that's quite the phrase, Dave. The rain is really starting to come down now. And I was just saying to Conor, congratulations, But can you give us a bit of an update, what it's like to drive out there?
Oh, that was the sketchiest rain run I've ever done in my life. It was horrible. The lead run was okay. I just tried fill the zones, nothing crazy. But along the wall, because the back of this car has like no overhang, you're literally the deepest person in the wall. So when you're up against the wall, you're on like complete rubber. So it's like clutching every 2 seconds trying to get away with it. The chase run, I'm running one wiper. I need to try fix that. And it fogged up as well, so I couldn't even get on the lead run behind him. I was literally just hoping he was in the right places. I could just see some red and carbon fibre, what I was trying to follow. But yeah, we're through to the main event, through to the top 16, and let's keep the push on, and hopefully we get things dialed and I can improve in the rain and just get things moving as fast as possible.
Thank you, Conor. Go get yourself dry, and we'll see you in the top 16. Guys, back to you.
Thanks, Becky. Great to hear from the drivers themselves, and it definitely feels as sketchy in there as it is to watch on the outside, Eddie, because I tell you one thing, I have watched some incredible drivers today look like they have no idea what's going on, and Conor Shanahan, if he's winning a battle that comfortably and still that uncomfortable, well, it's a lot to take in. Here we have Teemu, Pöytälaakso, an all-Finnish battle. They're a little bit wet in the grandstands right now, the Finnish fans, but they're starting to perk up because two of their heroes are now on the start line. We have Juha Pöytälaakso. He's shaking his head before he even gets off the line. He's thumbs downing the weather because he has no idea what's about to happen. And Teemu is in the diesel Mercedes, and I have no idea what's going to happen here. If you're a drift fan, this is what it's all about. Complete unpredictability. And I'd say, you know, if there was betting and drifting right now, the odds would be pretty even on every battle.
Absolutely, Dave. I mean, there's no picking a winner between these. You don't know what's going to happen until they come off the line. But here we go. Juha Pöytälaakso to lead in. Teemu Pöytälaakso. Pöytälaakso putting on big angle and throws it into a spin right to the off-take.
Yeah, didn't even, oh, and he might even just about get away with hitting the wall there. And again, came in way too hot, and an experience for me. Oh, and another spin as he almost puts it in the ground. And I mean, at this stage now, it's just about getting around the track. Do not spin, do not put wheels off. And Juha just holding on by a thread here as he's on the inside of the track, nowhere near the wall, just trying to survive, Eddie, and that's all it's about now, just survive the run. I mean, I've never seen a driver on the start line give the thumbs down with so little confidence in the track, and in fairness, he did the job pretty good. He got across the line in the end. It's not going to be a high score, but it's better than a 0, which is what Teemu did.
Yeah, no, look, it's he was massively helped, I think, there by Teemu because, you know, Juha just didn't have the perfect line here whatsoever, but you know what? He's managed to get himself around that circuit, almost went off and had to spin himself. You can see here just getting very deep. Did he get a 0 there himself? Did he?
Is it 2 wheels off?
Is it 2 wheels off? That's the question, you know. Could we have a double 0?
So yeah, we're hearing from the judges, it is 2 incompletes because we have one man spinning around on the first corner and the other went 2 wheels into the dirt. So guess what the score was there for a combined run of 2 drivers? Nothing.
Nil all.
Nil all.
Nil all at halftime.
Nil all at halftime here in the championship, and we're trying to make light of it because there's just nothing to make light of, because I can't believe we didn't have like Teemu's sitting on the start line going, well, I've definitely thrown that away. He has probably not watched Juha put the 2 wheels off. Teemu now is going to go, wait till you see this, because he's a showman. He's going to go, I'm going to put the best run in of the whole time. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to, but he might not know that as the rain starts to spill here in Riga. It's getting heavy now, and it's starting to get tough for the drivers because the window wipers are on. The cars have a huge amount of heat being created in the car, and of course you've got no carpets or anything to absorb all of the moisture coming in, so it starts to fog up your window, and it just gets horrible. And here we go. We got the Starlight Marshal with the umbrella on. The lights will go green, and Teemu and Juha, well, they're both sitting on 0s. It's all down to this run.
Yes, it all comes down to this one as Teemu leads in. Juha Pöytälaakso here for the second half of this one. 2 0s. Who's going to get it done here on this one? Teemu dropping the wheel nice and early there, but just manages to keep it going as Juha Pöytälaakso takes a very safe line. Not really getting out to much of a wide line here as Teemu now just feathers the throttle, but he goes off again, Dave. Almost goes into the barriers hard there in front of the grandstand. Huge error from him, and you know what? Juha, the second time of asking, looks like he might just get this car around the circuit and get himself into the top 16.
Yeah, this is not going to be one for the highlight reel anyway, Eddie, this battle. There was very little drifting at all, if any. And it looked to me like Teemu got a lot of understeer coming through the inner zone, and I think he did well actually to keep the front end of the car from going up over the curb. But Juha's going to be like, I don't know, I dropped wheels, but I think Juha's going to know when he saw Teemu go off the track that surely this will be enough. But you can see, watch the front wheels on Teemu's car as he comes through. He tries, the front starts to push, and then all of a sudden he's got no grip on the rear end, and just about gets away without sending that car and a beautiful Mercedes into the barriers. But he's got, and Juha's like, what? Where am I going? I'm not going to follow him in there. So as he goes around the outside, Juha Pöytälaakso will, I'm sure, get the win here and go to the top 16 in the most unconventional of fashions. Everything's been quite unconventional. Look at that big push on the front. You can see no grip on the front of the car as it pushes through, and Teemu doing a good job of keeping it out of the wall. But as far as I'm sure, he'll still be celebrating Teemu, but he won't be celebrating a win here, as I think Juha is going to take it and go through to the top 16. And both of our drivers out of the cars, and a lot of shaking of the heads, and a lot of it did not go well. And Teemu, you'll see the smiles there, but they'll be behind. A little bit of frowning as well, because he's going to lose that one and take two to the top 16. Juha Pöytälaakso getting the win. Eddie, it's just survival of the fittest right now.
It really is just survival, Dave, at the moment. And you know what, Juha, he'll be moving on to the top 16, but one thing he won't be feeling is confident after either of those two runs. Not what he would have wanted.
And we'll go back to the one more time between Duane McKeever and Adam Zalewski. Adam Zalewski and Duane McKeever could also not complete two runs. One more time, McKeever spinning, Zalewski going off the track. We're back to where we started. Now, they're going to be a little bit more confident here with the conditions because they've had those two runs.
I'm expecting a lot more from these two guys this time around, Dave. As you say, they've had the experience of that first run. They know where the grip is and where it isn't. They know they need to be that bit more tentative as they come in front of the grandstand at outer zone 4. Will we see that from him, though? Duane McKeever off the line very quickly, trying to keep pace now with Adam Zalewski. Zalewski, tentative entry, but you know how controlled he is. Filling that, just comes in and comes off that wide line, Dave, very early. Causes problems for McKeever, who was right on the door there. McKeever very close up to Zalewski. Zalewski now drops wheels up onto the curb again. McKeever making evasive action, dialing on the angle, and again these two just not putting in a clean run here. Just can't find those clean lines, and two drivers not looking overly confident here. Can McKeever now just find some proximity through the final sections as Zalewski looks really slow as he takes it to the wall. They go across the line, Dave, and neither of these two guys inspiring confidence.
Yeah, I liked your phrase of where the grip is and isn't. I think the grip is non-existent anywhere. I'm looking at the rear wheels of all these cars, and they're trying to stay on and off throttle, but to me, it looked like Zalewski's first corner. That's going to be one the judges are having a big old look at, because he's on the wide line, but then he cuts across in front of McKeever, and McKeever has to make evasive action. What? McKeever goes deep, and Zalewski comes off throttle. Look at that. McKeever it's almost contact. I think there probably is contact there as Zalewski fires across the track. And there's another mistake here from Zalewski where he makes a similar one again. Goes up on the curb, slows the car down, drops a wheel off the track, almost two. And McKeever has to go on almost 90 degrees of angle in the chase to kind of avoid him, which pushes McKeever back into the box of the battle. And then Zalewski does pull a little bit of ground here. I think that's going to be, accounted to Zalewski causing that issue in the first place at the first two corners. And then at this stage, they're just both trying to survive and get around the last corner because it's no grip there whatsoever. McKeever says he's good. Zalewski says he's good. McKeever, I think, taking an advantage here, but again, he had that the last time round and he spun the car. So what happens next?
Well, look, Dave, who knows? I don't think he makes the same mistake as he did last time. He's going to know he has the advantage this time. He's not going to make that mistake again. You would hope at least McKeever had been looking comfortable up until that point as he now comes down into that outer zone. Look at how he fills that nicely. No problems for him as Zalewski tucks in the chase position. Nice transition back to outer zone 2. But McKeever now, will he be a little bit more tentative? Certainly dials it in perfectly this time around. McKeever knows where he made the error the last time. It wasn't going to be a case this time around. But can he complete the circuit now as he tucks up? Look at Zalewski making a big error in the chase position. McKeever now just needs to get this across the line and he'll find himself in that top 16. And you can just see, Dave, how slow it gets through that final section with the amount of water that has built up in that outer zone.
They have time to have a conversation while they're door to door there, and it's pretty wet. Yeah. Let's finish. I'll give us a few minutes. To me, that was a masterclass from McKeever in the lead position, because he's actually come in there and done the correct qualifying line, which we haven't watched at any battle here for a long time. And Zalewski's doing a good job in the chase, and he's got a good lead to chase. McKeever doesn't make the error here, stays right to the edge of the track. You see how much standing water is there, and it's tough to negotiate. But this is a massive mistake from Zalewski. He goes on the inside, and he's got to transition sooner than McKeever. Watch, he transitions early, but he's on the inside of the track. He's in absolute no man's land. But McKeever now absolutely slams into the wall here. The only reason the car keeps going is because the car is so soft in the rear with so many fiberglass panels, as he uses the wall to almost push himself around the track. Zalewski's in no man's land. I think that's going to be a much easier call for the judges, and Zalewski smiles, but he's going to be not happy that the conditions ruined another chance for him to get back into the top 16 this year, as the win will go to Duane McKeever as he heads to the top 16. Did it the hard way, Eddie. Had to get it done on the second go, but look, he's absolutely destroyed the back end of the car as well.
He certainly has, but you know what, Dave? I think a huge lesson learned there for Duane McKeever. He wipes the brow there. You can just see as he exhales. He knows he's got out of jail free there. And I think for McKeever, he'll take a lot from that. Now, we move it on to another battle sitting on the start line. Felix Lindvall, the Swede, taking on Irish driver Jack Shanahan. This will be explosive because you know what? Jack Shanahan, not as cool and calm as collected as his younger brother Conor. He likes to be fast, he likes to be wild, wet or dry.
Yeah, you look at the Shanahans and start those different styles. Jack all about the flair, about the style. Conor a little bit more calculated, a little bit more strategic. Maybe in the wet it's time to be calculated and strategic, but you've got now Felix Lindvall in this new E-Class Mercedes who's making moves. He debuted the car in Finland, looking very comfortable in practice and qualifying. Jack Shanahan looks like he's got a lot more speed out the blocks here than Felix Lindvall has. Shanahan with a massively early initiation. He's very clever. Tests the conditions before he goes in, and Felix Lindvall not able to hang so far. Has a big separation between both drivers as they come to the center section. This is the tricky part for everybody. Shanahan goes on big angle. Will he hold it? He's almost off the track, but he does hold it. One wheel up on the curve for Jack Shanahan as he tries to stay in the championship fight, and Felix Lindvall's on cross-country mode in the E-Class in the chase position as Jack Shanahan, another driver ploughing into the wall, into outer zone 6. And of course those GT86s have no, your rear wheel is in the wall as they come around. Looks like to me Jack Shanahan with half the job done here. Felix Lindvall just dropping off the track quite severely, and Jack Shanahan third in the championship right now. You know, when you look at his brother Conor and Lauri Heinonen both getting through to the top 16, Shanahan's championship, and I mean Jack on this occasion is in the balance, but he does a really good job. And you know what, that was quite an aggressive run for these conditions.
Yeah, look, I like the way Jack just got it settled up, but is that too? It looked as though from the first angle as if it was one wheel off, one wheel on the curb, but we need to see that reverse angle.
Yeah, because watch the rear wheels of Shanahan's cars. If he puts two in the dirt here, this is where it's going to be worrying. Watch those rear wheels. Does one stay up on the curb, or do both go in the dirt?
I think the second one just about stays on the curb, Dave. Just
if it is, it's an inch on the curb, and that's just from our initial viewing. The judges obviously have plenty more angles than we do, but from my perspective right now, Lindvall here, does he incomplete? Watch the rear wheels of Lindvall's car. Does he put two in the dirt?
Well, he's on a very wide line here, and you know, if he's not two wheels,
yeah, that's two wheels.
I mean, that's a long car, so again, you can't say fully from that angle, but it certainly looked as though, I mean, Jack Shanahan may have gotten away with that one.
I think we look at Lindvall putting two wheels in the dirt and Shanahan putting 1.5, and I think just about staying on the curb, and it is tough. But Jack Shanahan now in the chase position. He's having a word with the start line marshal, so I'm not sure what the situation is here. Maybe we have a fogged up windscreen for Jack Shanahan. That's not going to help Eddie.
No, certainly not. We've seen this before in the past where our start line marshals have massively helped the drivers, but Conor spoke about this as well, the same issue. He couldn't see with the condensation on the window what was happening. He just tried to find patches of red and carbon fiber, and
but what happens is that your race suit gets wet, you get in the car and it evaporates straight up onto the windscreen and you can't see anything.
Yeah, and of course your own body temperature doesn't really help in that situation either for that issue. But here we go, second half of this one. We're not sure quite what way the judges will have scored the first run, but Lindvall here now in the lead position. He knows he's got to go hard here because he's got Shanahan breathing down his throat, doing a nice job through that first zone. Shanahan, you can barely see him behind Lindvall's huge Mercedes, but he is tucked in right there with him as Lindvall now comes in front of the grandstand. Oh, just getting up on the curb as well, but manages to keep this one going. This is where it all went wrong from in the chase position. Again, flirting on the curb, but keeps it on the circuit. Shanahan now very tentative, very calculated in the chase position, just keeping himself poised and ready for that final attack as they come to the last few sections, and across the line they go. And you know what, Dave, given the conditions, not a bad run from both guys.
You know what, that's the best battle we've seen of the top 32 in these conditions, and it took a very large E-Class Mercedes to go out there and boss the track. And I think Felix Lindvall does a great job in the lead. I thought at this point he was going to spin on entry because he initiates later than I've seen anyone else later. I mean, Shanahan's initiating probably 30 feet before Lindvall is, and he still makes it work. So that's phenomenal stuff from Felix Lindvall. He is dropping over the edge of the circuit here, and he does drop a couple on the curb as well. But I think that's the tail of the tape for every run now is, can we just keep it pinball between the two curbs? And Lindvall here, look, he stalls up on the curb, one wheel just dirt dropping there. And look how much handbrake Shannon's having to use just to not overcommit. And usually we see...
Look how poor the conditions are for the visibility there for Shanahan in the chase position, but look how calculated he is as well, Dave. Look at the line he takes. He keeps the proximity, but he knows he doesn't need to be anywhere near that curb. Just stay midline through the circuit. But the visibility there in the chase position is just outrageously poor.
I'm not sure Shannon's using the force there to get through a lot of that track because he can't see a whole lot. This is nice from Lindvall. Big angle here as he takes back. He transitions a little early, goes on the handbrake a little early, and doesn't get to the start of the outer zone, and then Once he gets into it, it's about halfway through the corner. You can see Shanahan, look how much handbrake pulling he's doing there. Look, handbrake, handbrake, handbrake. Like the car is barely moving at that stage to stay in the chase position. Very tough on all of these competitors right now. Not what they wanted after a fully dry qualifying session. And is there pieces, looks like pieces of Lindvall's car hanging off the back of it there as he came through. He's actually lodging some of the rubber there. Some of the Irish fans, you can see they're still in good spirits. Well, will they be in better spirits if Shanahan gets the win, or will it be Felix Lindvall? I think it looks to us an obvious it'll all come down to those wheel drops on the first run, and we're going to know pretty much. You can see Jack Shanahan not sure which way this one's going to go. And there you have it, the championship hopes still very much alive for Jack Shanahan as he stays in third position, top 3 in the championship, all the way through now to the top 16. And Becky is down with Jack, and that again looks like another sketchy one, Becky, as nobody knows how to stay on the track.
Sketchy is definitely the name of the game right here. Jack, I'm looking at your windscreen right now, and it's fogged up completely in there.
I cannot see a thing. On my lead run on the straight, like on my own, my wiper wasn't fast enough and literally could not see anything. I thought I adjusted enough to get out of zone 3 without going off, and the minute you get past the inside clipping point, you just like you have no control at all. But yeah, we've actually just had a clutch failure as well, so I was hoping that for one more time because I actually can't select gears. So I'm quite blessed. So I was trying to get back to the pits, get some work done, and back out for top 16. So yeah, I think this is down for the day now. So this is it.
Jack, honestly, like as you're coming through clip 4 there, it just looks like the car washes away from you and you're using the handbrake constantly, just trying to readjust.
Yeah, it's pretty insane, like, because you get through 1 and 2 and then clip 2 actually grips up, so it kind of launches you forward. So I actually adjusted on the handbrake and I was like, oh, it's not that bad. And Conor had told me on the radio, and the minute you get past the inside clipping point, you're a passenger. You literally have no grip at all. So
clutch failure. I mean, trying to clutch kick it to get it moving again, that just wasn't happening.
Literally nothing. I have no clutch pedal, so I don't know, is it a cylinder failure or something, but I have no pedal at all, so I'm just trying to nurse it back to the pits now as well.
Thank you, Jack. Congratulations. Back to you guys.
So, fog window, no wipers, no clutch, but Kevin, he still managed to get it done, but it was probably going to be very close on that 2-wheel drop on the curb, so it's knife edge there, right?
It really is knife edge, Dave, and we're very lucky here that we have our separate EVS systems, because for both of those wheel drops, Jack's one here, as you can see in the lead run, we had to really slow this down. Luckily, he just about kept it on the curb there, so that wasn't an incomplete. And then almost immediately afterwards, from this view here, we were sure that Felix was 2 wheels off, but luckily we had an alternative camera angle that we were able to see, and Felix just about keeps that on the curb as well. So while both drivers made quite large mistakes, it really all did come down to the proximity overall. So we're really lucky that we had our replay system here.
That's incredible, because we thought there were so many incompletes there, but there actually wasn't, and it was down to the proximity of the battle in the end. So obviously the judges having so much more viewpoints than we have, us mere mortals, the machines that they are, their technical brains were able to figure that one out. Now, it is going to be Finland versus the Czech Republic. Mika Keskikorpi against Marko Zakarul. Zakarul usually the rocket ship through here. He was on fire yesterday. It's going to be a tough task to go on fire in these conditions today. But I feel like his Back to the Future moment yesterday would probably like him to bring us back to yesterday, because it was much nicer weather. Zakarul, very good on this circuit, Eddie, but this is just another roll of the dice. If the likes of Shanahan and Heinonen and all these guys are saying there's no grip out there, all of these guys, look at this, Mika Keskikorpi going, I don't know what's going to happen. So it's all about throwing the dice down now and hoping it works out for you.
Well, you say he's good on this circuit, Dave, but this is a completely different circuit to what these guys are used to. And, you know, it's pretty much like coming to a new track, because look at this. This is absolutely insane. The amount of standing water on that circuit. And, you know, we're used to seeing it in Irish championships in the past, Dave, but maybe in some of these European countries where a little bit of hotter climate, not quite what we're accustomed to seeing here.
No, and the thing is, it's heavy rain constant, so it's not drying the track. It's getting worse as it goes. So you watched all that sketchy stuff at the start of top 32. It's getting worse now, ladies and gentlemen. There's more standing water on top of the lack of grip, on top of the rubber, and on top of all the muck that all the drivers are just dragged onto the track from every single corner of it. How are any of these last couple of battles going to be anything other than a mess? And you've got to survive. It's all about survival. And we watched only, I think, probably 3 runs for me in the whole top 32 from the lead position look comfortable. And that was Conor Shanahan, James Deane, and Lauri Heinonen. They're really the 3 most comfortable runs. And if you're only picking 3 good lead runs out of 16 battles in this top 32 at the top level, it shows how tough this is.
Yeah, look, those guys as well, wealth of experience in wet conditions, so you would expect nothing less from them. But you know what, for the rest of the grid, it's a nervous time because it's a completely different competition now to what we had yesterday. And guys that were looking comfortable yesterday out on circuit, you know, maybe feeling like, you know, they need to reassess what's going to happen for them today.
But then the thing about it is, I don't think the strategy you're starting the battle with matters anymore. It's all about the split-second decision-making throughout the run because, you know, modern drifting, I think all these guys know they can get around the circuit and do a good run, and it's whether they want to go, nearly a crash in the burnout box. But what I'm saying is that right now, it's not really about your setup or your, you know, how you're approaching the run. It's just when I get to that bit where it's all going to go wrong, how do I survive it? And that's going to be down to split-second decision-making rather than strategically try to do something different. Because I noticed from, you know, even Conor Shanahan doing a very, very safe run, I would say, it can also allow you to straighten up, you know, in the chase position if you go too safe, because it doesn't work that way with these cars being so gripped up for the rain. So I think it's going to come down to you hit a slippy patch, how do you deal with it?
Yeah, well, look, and a lot of information feeding back to the other drivers in the grid who are yet to go. So they're going to start to understand that after they leave that second outer zone, as they come through the inner zone clip or inside zone 3 and leading out to outer zone 4, that's where they're going to have no grip, and that's going to be the challenging section for them. That information feeds back, it means that they can make those decisions in advance.
Well, what I'm looking at here is, are we going to have a track flood? Because that's something that we've also got to have to think about, because obviously our great marshals here in Latvia, in these conditions, which is horrible to be a marshal in, are trying to push as much standing water as they can into the grass areas. However, if that standing water starts to get too deep, too heavy, and I'm looking at a puddle there, you know, after the grandstand on the second corner, starts to get too heavy, then you're going to start to see water getting sucked up by the cars, by the intakes, and then you're going to start seeing engine damage, and you're going to start seeing all sorts of problems. So we're going to keep a monitor on that. And of course, with all these walls laid down, we saw it in Finland, they actually block the water from actually leaving the circuit. So there may be what we call a relief in the dam, where you got to lift the block and let some of the water go, like we did in Finland. And I mean, the safety marshals here in Drift Masters have had a really tough season with so many changing conditions right throughout. And we saw it in Finland in qualifying. We had lightning hit the track flood, and then we finished qualifying, beautiful sunshine to finish the event. So it doesn't seem to make any sense. But for me, this puddle down here and these two birds right here, these are the ones that are going to be making all the decisions today.
Yeah, out there assessing the damage. And
they're doing a bit of assessment here, saying it's wet out, it's very wet.
Yeah, chief safety officers, bird 1 and bird 2.
They're nearly, you know, if the birds aren't flying, you're in trouble. They're sitting down, they're going this on that. This guy, you know, he started off with less alcohol, and now he has a full pint. So that's how much rain is out there already. He's not getting as drunk as he wants to be, because it's getting more and more diluted.
Just keeping the spirits high, the spirits in the cup.
The spirits in his brain. So here we go, Mika Keskikorpi from Finland against Marko Zakarol. I have no idea which way this one's going to go, but they're going for it anyway. As they head to that first corner, Zakarol in the lead position. How early is he going to initiate here to be safe on it? He's going pretty early, and it's actually late enough. He's going to drop a wheel. This is going to be tough for Zakarol. Keskikorpi having to adapt on big angle as Keskikorpi now tries to keep that proximity, and Zakarol firing through the course. But this is the tough part. He's going very fast here. He's going to lose the back end, and will he keep it under control? He does. Keskikorpi right up in his business, and now this is where those standing water is going to come into play. And Zakarol doing a great job here as they transition back. This is a good battle between both of these guys. That change in surface conditions as they come into outer zone 6, catching both drivers, but not bad, Eddie, as they take this one to the wall. They're both still very much in the fight.
Yeah, certainly so, Dave, certainly so. Hugely in the fight, both those drivers. Some errors in the lead position, some errors in the chase position, nothing major, but you know, I think the two guys will be happy that they've made it through that first run with their cars still intact. It looked as though Marko Zakarol was going to go that a little bit too deep on outer zone 1 here. Does drop a wheel, of course, but you know what, I'm not sure the judges will penalise him too much for that. And you can see as he goes towards in front of the grandstand, it looked like he was going to go a little bit too far up on that curb. Does make it up onto the curb, but manages to keep it on the circuit.
Keskikorpi's proximity here? I mean, he's with him the whole way. That's a one wheel off for me from Zakarol. But what I would say is Keskikorpi stays with him the whole way, and you know, he can't have a good chase without a good lead. And it looks to me like both of these guys are actually doing a really good job of making. I mean, we've watched a couple of very sketchy runs. This wasn't one of them.
No, and I think the only time from Keskikorpi where he looks unsettled is that transition there from Zakarol in front from, where it just looked as though he got a little bit caught on the inside line there. But as you say, Dave, very good in the chase position, but he was given a good lead run to follow as well.
Yeah, well, the boys are out there brushing away all the standing water. We now know that Marko Zakarol does a lot more with the rear end of his car than those boys ever will with a brush, getting rid of all of the water out of that puddle. As Keskikorpi now will take to the lead position, and Marko Zakarol will sit in the chase position. Zakarol, I think, has a lot more pace than Keskikorpi in that chassis. But Keskikorpi, I don't know if pace is the right thing to have here, because you go too hot in the chase position here, there could be contact. It is so knife edge here. We have a lot of drivers that want a big weekend here in Riga that are really falling victims to the conditions. Keski Korpi's in that lead position. Look how hard it is even to come off the line. Both cars spinning wheels coming off the start line.
Well, I think, Dave, this one's certainly hanging in the balance after the first run. So both these guys will be making it, you know, their journey down to outer zone 1, thinking, if I could just make one clean pass of the circuit. But you can already see Zacharel straightening up in the chase position there, just having some issues. Keski Korpi now doing a good job in the lead position. Can he keep away from the curves? Drops at least one, but look at the angle that Marco Zacharel had to dial on to try and keep himself from going into the side of that BMW, and a big spin there shuts it down. Does Marco Zacharel in the chase position. Was there an error there in the lead position from Keski Korpi? I'd need to see it again, but you know what, Dave? It is just so treacherous for these guys.
I watched just the first 2 corners there, and I was holding on stuff. Keski Korpi goes too wide on the first corner, but it's going to come down to that spin and who caused it. Now, Keski Korpi is on the wide line. Zacharel's with him. They both go to the curb. Is Zacharel unforced there to spin, or did Keski Korpi lead him out into that part of the track? That's what the judges are going to say. Is he just following the lead car into that situation? But it looked to me like this was a big error as well from Zacharel. Straightens up in the chase position. Remember, he's on a much shorter line here, so he's having to do a lot more braking. And again, he looks really like he's struggling in that chase position because he looks like he has much more grip. And Keski Korpi goes on big angle here, drops the wheel. Look at the 90 degrees from Zacharel here to stay in the game. And as he transitions back, this is what the judges are going to decide, whether this up on the curb from Keski Korpi was the reason both drivers were there and Zacharel spins, or did Zacharel spin unforced? And look at that, he's almost 2 wheels off there, Keski Korpi. I'm not sure what way the judges will call that. I have no idea what's going on anymore, but this to me is where it's all going to come down. Keski Korpi goes on big angle, up on the curb, gets through it, and Zacharel doesn't. Spins out in the chase position. And I think Kevin O'Connell, as we talked to him earlier on, said doesn't mind a guy getting up on the curb, but he doesn't want 2 wheels over the curb. And Zacharel looked to me like he was unforced there.
Yeah, for me, Zacharel just overly aggressive given the conditions, Dave. I think maybe had he backed off maybe a couple of feet more, might have given himself a little bit more room to maneuver a little bit smoothly throughout the run. I don't know, it's just from where I'm watching it from, but to me, I think he caused a lot of his problems.
Yeah, you can see Kevin O'Connell's concentration face here, which is the most concentration. And he's, look, they're just, this is what the judges are watching. So we're watching what the way they watch it. Every now and again, we give you guys a little glimpse into what they're watching. And you can see Kevin watching that corner to see,
I don't think there's enough there from Keski Korpi to cause the spin.
I'm going to tell you, I think what they're looking at here is, did Keski Korpi stall up massively to cause this? And I don't think he did. Watch this. He comes through and he keeps the pace on the curb, whereas Zacharel sort of, I think he just over-rotates. I think that looks like an unforced error for me from Marco Zacharel. Sure, you can put a little bit of blame on Keski Korpi for just before it, but right here, Keski Korpi goes up at the curb, keeps going. In fact, he's actually a little bit shallow and fast through it. And it looks to me like it is Marco Zacharel going up on the curb. There's the Finnish fans. They're still having fun out there, enjoying themselves here in the wet weather conditions. Keski Korpi. It's a hell of a hat. I'm not sure if that's a traditional hat or that's style, or maybe I'm behind the times. That might just be his fireproof balaclava in a beautifully rearranged design there. Could be a fashion statement. Well, let's see who's going through. You can see the marshals working away to clear the water in the background. Zacharel and Keski Korpi. I think Zacharel's probably going to think he spun this. So I think he's probably looking the more dejected of the two here.
Yeah, look, the fact that the judges are still deliberating this one, Dave, means it's a lot more complicated than what maybe yourself or myself have picked up on. Maybe you guys at home have seen something that we haven't as well. But yeah, certainly the judges continue to deliberate over this one.
Yeah, we're watching this, you know, like you guys, like fans. We're sitting there with you trying to decipher what's going on. We're not always right. We're very often wrong.
Very rarely right.
Very rarely right. And we're here just to enjoy it and have fun and try and make some sense of it. But when it comes to technical judging decisions, the judges look at these events far differently than we do as spectators, because they have a technical rule book that they're looking at. They also have explained every single inch of the track to the drivers in the driver briefing. And of course, if we were to explain that back to you guys, it would take about 3 to 4 weeks. So we try and just give you a bit of an update as we go. But the judges have basically said at every single part of this track what they expect and what they don't want to see. And they're going to make a decision on this one. But the length of this decision for me, I'm going to tell you right now, I think we're going to have a bit of a split decision. I just feel like feel that's in the air.
Yeah, well, usually when there's a deliberation to this degree, Dave, it's definitely, you know, maybe a split decision, or, you know, guys just trying to put forward their point of view on what exactly transpired
Yeah, and of course
on the run.
our three judges, three individuals here. We've got Vernon, you know, from Holland, we've got Kevin from Ireland, and we've got David from the Czech Republic. So they're all very different viewpoints, and they all have a lot of belief in their own ability to call a run. They don't need everyone to agree here.
But what they'll always take it back to is the rule book and what they spoke about in briefing to the drivers, and they would have been very clear on certain aspects. Obviously the rain makes a huge difference to that as well, but
for sure. So here we go, decision coming in. And it looks like it's going to be Marko Zacharel getting the win. So the judges there having a look at that lead run, Kevin. Maybe, I'm just assuming, but maybe causing Zacharel to be in that position.
Yeah, obviously you guys saw that we did an awful lot of deliberating over that one, and I think the initial reaction was, yes, it was Zacharel's fault that he actually went off and had the spin. But if you look at it from a few alternate different angles and you actually come back a couple of steps all the way to outer zone 4, you can see that Mika was actually, after putting a wheel up on the curb at outer zone 4, then he had a slightly affected transition coming towards outer zone 5, where he actually had to use the handbrake a couple of times to adjust, therefore decelerating in a non-decelerating zone, and put a wheel up on the curb at outer zone 5 as well. So all those combinations of things made it extremely difficult for Marko Zacharel to adapt to that and to chase it effectively. So you could see Zacharel then had another handbrake adjustment coming towards outer zone 5, and we felt that that was Mika's lead line that caused that. Therefore, Mika was at fault for the incomplete from Zacharel.
There you have it. I mean, we watched it first time around and we thought Zacharel, but if you do break it down the way Kevin has said, there's 4 corrections from Mika before Zacharel gets to that point. It makes perfect sense. We move along to our next battle, to a man that's on fire this weekend, Kevin Pizor. He's been looking like he's unstoppable. 3rd place in qualifying. The man from Estonia, 24 years of age, another young up-and-comer. He goes up against the Japanese champion of Naoki Nakamura, who looked like he was struggling for gearing in qualifying, but now that the rain's come down, they get a lot of rain in Japan, Eddie, so he's going to be used to these kind of conditions, even though we can't see anything of him in the car. Oh, this is another knife-edge battle. Pizor looking, if I was going in here in the dry, I would nearly give Pizor the advantage over the form we've seen in qualifying. But now with the rain in here and Nakamura in the chase position where he loves to be, anything can happen.
Dave, you've taken the words right out of my mouth. 3rd place qualifier, Kevin Pizor. If this was dry conditions, you'd say we haven't seen Nakamura perform this weekend so far, but could he come alive here in the wet conditions here in Riga? I think we are about to find out, as Kevin Pizor looks equally comfortable now on the wet or dry circuit. Nice line through the first section, but look at Nakamura, so aggressive now in the chase position, door to door as they come in front of the grandstands. What can Kevin Pizor do? Kevin Pizor over-rotates and Nakamura sails into the distance.
Oh, you have to just sometimes in this sport go, it's so harsh. Kevin Pizor, perfect in practice, perfect in qualifying, spins in wet conditions in the top 32. And Nakamura, not perfect in practice, not perfect in qualifying, but shows his experience in the rain as he wisely doesn't go on big angle in the chase position. And Kevin Pizor makes his own error on his own as far as I can see.
Never count out Naoki Nakamura. I think, you know what, one to watch here this weekend, Dave. I said it earlier on when I was watching practice and watching these guys, and I just felt, you know what, he hasn't shown up yet, but he's one of those drivers, he comes alive in the battle action, and, well, he is looking like he is one
He just sailed through.
Wet run through.
Yeah. He just sailed through all the carnage there in front of him. What happened was Kevin was going for the perfect wide line. I mean, he's trying to emulate his qualifying run. And Nakamura's on the inside line. When the inside line is far drier, well, if there's any dry line at all, but it's definitely not as slippy, right? So he's got all of the control, and you can see him on the handbrake on and off, just adjusting the car, not over-committing. And once Kevin hit that slippy outside surface, he went around and Nakamura said, I'm sure something in Japanese because he doesn't speak English, but what he's saying in his head is that I'm not over-committing here. I'm in proximity. I'm waiting for you to make the mistake. He did make the mistake, and now Nakamura is one clean run away from a spot in the top 16. And if you look at Nakamura's qualifying score, he's only crept in 30th position. He goes up against a third-place qualifier, and he's now got the advantage. That's the equalizer the rain is here, Eddie, and that is going to be the story right throughout this competition.
The all-important point you've made there, Dave, though, is that he is one clean run away from a top 16 spot. We haven't seen him make one clean run of the circuit so far this weekend.
No.
Are we about to see it? Well, what a time to put it together, because right now, Nakamura...
He's a big-time player.
He's a big-time player.
Yeah.
A lot of experience. Looks very comfortable, you have to say, in the wet conditions here. You know, obviously his first time going out on that circuit as well. in wet conditions this weekend. But can Kevin Pessoa, let's not write him off too soon as they leave the line for the second half of this one. Only a few more battles in the top 32 to go. But here comes Nakamura, setting that car up nice and early. You can see those early dabs of the handbrake. Will that upset the line and upset Kevin Pessoa in the chase position? Well, no problems for either driver so far as Nakamura keeps the car on quite a shallow line, but a safe
It's the clever line, Eddie. It's the clever line around here that Nakamura's on now. He's not overcommitting to anything. He's watched every driver on the grid make an absolute hash of that outside zone, and he said, I'm just not going near it. I'm just going to keep going. And with an advantage from the first run, it's the clever way. He's not even trying to be perfect on the line. He knows that it's spins and wheels off that's winning and losing battles right now. And cleverly, he decides to just stay away from all of that. And I think that's got him the win.
I believe so, Dave. Obviously, with the apparent zero for Kevin Pessoa on the first run, it looks as though Nakamura, while he hasn't set the world alight here, will have done enough on the second half of this one.
Yeah, but watch the transition here. He doesn't go for the outside line. He knows it's slippy. He knows that everyone's making big mistakes. He gets this right. He shallows up the angle here, watch. And he says, I'm just going to handbrake and power through this up onto the curb. Doesn't go on big angle, and that big angle is ruining everybody's day. He doesn't do it. Kevin Pessoa is like, oh, I'm doing a good chase run here, but he's not making any big errors. And he knows already at the last corner, I think Nakamura just cleverly did enough there to get himself through. And maybe that's the experience of so many wet competitions.
But look, Dave, you take it. He knows that a 9-1 deficit is still enough to get him through into the top 16.
For sure. So let's see which way the judges go. And it is confirming that Nakamura gets the win and goes through to the top 16. Thumbs up, smile, and the Japanese champion will go through to the top 16. Kevin Pessoa, I mean, he's going to be disappointed. Third in qualifying. To me, I would have put my money on him to win the event this weekend. Once the rain came in, the wily Japanese driver Nakamura said, nope, I'm just going to play it nice and smooth and easy. A very Conor Shanahan approach to say, nah, I'm not going to throw it away. I'm just going to be easy here. And there you have it. It is the clever way to take on this track. We go back to the start line. We've got Clint Van Oot against Michael Reichardt, Holland versus Czech Republic. And two guys that are now looking at other runs constantly saying, what's the right approach? To me, it's got to be the shallow line with the handbrake. It's got to, I mean, it's not what, I never want to say that out loud, but it's got to be the clever approach now.
You know what, I think that's easy to say when you're on the second half of the run and the driver in front of you has made a huge error. Sitting on the line, ready to go for the very first run of a top 32 battle against a driver who has qualified well or is equally capable. Look at these two guys, 14th and 19th. They can't afford to give an inch here. They can't afford to try and pull out a safe run on the first half of the battle.
For sure, as it gets Clint Van Out to lead in. Michael Reichardt very aggressive from the off here as he goes into the front. Clint Van Out coming way too fast here. He's not going to make that work, and they're both going to go really far wide here. That looks to me like Clint Van Out leading Michael Reichardt off the track. And I'm just watching, I'm sure you guys are at home, you could just see the pace of Clint Van Out there was not going to work on that corner. He was coming in way too hot, and he's lost a lot of panels to Michael Reichardt through the first corner. And to me, and that's only first opinion, it looked like he went in too hot. He's got suspension damage maybe on the back of that car as well. It looks to me like there might have been a hit. It could just be loose body panels. We'll try and confirm that. But it looked to me like there might be some issues there with the contact from Michael Reichardt. Reichardt following him in. That's what you're meant to do in the chase position. And it looked to me like Clint Van Out, very late initiation. It was going to be really risky to make that work.
Yeah, certainly from the first view there, Dave, it did look as though Van Oort was just pushing that wide line just a little bit too much. And as you say, Michael Reichardt in the chase position doing exactly what he's told to do by the judges, which is just, emulate the line of the lead driver. And he's not going to be able to tell from where he is that he's how far into the dirt that he's about to go. We watch it one more time here.
He initiates like so late compared to most of the other drivers. And look, once he hits this part here,
he's dropped off before he's even got to that first ever zone.
Now, I will say Reichardt is fairly flying in there as well. He's overcommitted also.
But is the damage done by the early initiation here from Van Oort? I mean, as you say,
or late initiation,
rather, yeah.
But I think that's the thing, Eddie. I mean, he's entering 40 feet later than James Deane and Jack Shanahan, so he's taking a big risk. Then again, how hard is it to pick your point when you've never done a lap of the track in the rain before, which I don't think Clint Van Out has ever done. So very tough to ask these guys to be experts from the off when they've never driven in these conditions.
No, and I think what you do see from the likes of Shanahan and Deane is them setting the car up very early and getting the car into position long before they actually get to that outer zone. But
yeah, we just got confirmation from our judging panel that Clint Van Out at fault for the collision on the first corner, going in too hot, went off the track and leading Michael Reichardt with him. Michael Reichardt was asked, does he need a competition timeout? Reichardt, as advertised, said, as long as there's 4 wheels on the car, I'll go and give it another run. So they're going off down the track again. Clint Van Hout with a big disadvantage, and he has an incomplete. And I'm wondering, is there an issue with that car on the start line? Just gonna try and read the body language from the start line. They're having a little look around, make sure everything's okay. It was a big hit on that first quarter.
Yeah, well, they've moved over to Reichardt's car here, and or maybe they're just explaining. Yeah, there's definitely some conversations being had down there, and you know, hands on the radio, messages being delivered back to the officials.
So
and it's an X.
I'm going to tell you, I'm just going to say, remember that little tidbit of information I gave you that it looked like there was suspension damage on Clint Van Hout's car? Well, I confirmed there is suspension damage on Clint Van Hout's car, and therefore he cannot compete in the second half of the run. To be honest, it was a tall order as it was with an incomplete on the first run, but Clint Van Hout out of the conversation. So basically, yeah, on the first corner, Clint Van Hout has suspension damage. It just looked to me around the last corner when he was just finishing the run, something was weird with that car. So it's a steering problem, and I'm sure plenty of other arms have been bent with all the hits there.
Yeah,
so
lots of hits, and you know, a big rumble off the circuit as well, so not going to do the suspension on that car any favours. Reichardt gets ready to leave the line. He just needs to initiate here.
Yeah, just to initiate through the first corner. He doesn't have to be phenomenal here. He just has to initiate and make sure that he proves to the judges that he can drift. And on a day like today, that's enough, I think, to say, can you drift? I'm not so sure. It's pretty difficult out there. So Michael Reichardt will go around the circuit. He'll probably hit everything on the way. Trying to figure out, because he didn't get a clean lap there to figure out the conditions, which is the reason he's allowed to do this. And that's standing water. Look how bad it's getting there.
It's going to be a real problem as that progresses.
And Michael Reichardt spins the car as he comes around the last corner. Now, as far as I'm aware, that will be okay. He just needed to initiate, yeah. So, I mean, you know, I did say, can you drift, but only the first corner,
yeah.
Not the whole track.
Can you just initiate?
Can you just get around? It would be lovely at this stage, make it easier for us. But Michael Reichardt, being the only man there for the decision, is going to be pretty confident of which way it's going to go. And Reichardt, I mean, every one of these drivers is just like, ugh, this is awful.
Yep.
I cannot, I mean, to drive this as a car right now with the conditions is fine, but to try and drift it with your front and rear, you know, tires all over the shop. There's muck, there's tires.
I have to disagree with you there, Dave. I don't think just driving this as a normal car is even it's even something I'd want to do, or something that's possible. But we see just the judges now making it.
Michael Reichardt, like, I don't know what happened.
He's not even happy that he's won.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
He's happy. He's won the battle. He's like, I don't know what's happening. Where's my opponent gone? What's going on? And we're just like, let's just scratch that one, go to the top 16. Clint Van Hout out of competition. And Michael Reichardt is happy that he is in survival mode. He's got through it. He didn't complete one of the 2 runs, and he won the battle. That's the kind of day we're having, Ed. And it's going to be even more interesting as we head to our next battle between 2 very big heavyweights. Another man looking for that championship title this year is Juha Rintanen from Finland. He goes up against Jakob Kroll, and Jakob Kroll with a phenomenal qualifying session. 6th position for Jakob Kroll yesterday. And Juha Rintanen right down in 27th, not where you want to be, but on a day like today, it doesn't matter at all, because qualifying may as well have never happened.
Yeah, it's qualifying from yesterday is absolutely irrelevant here for any of these drivers. But what isn't irrelevant for Juha is the fact that his biggest championship contenders, all 3 drivers ahead of him in the championship, true to that top 16, he needs to perform here if he has any hopes of taking home a championship this year.
Yeah, well, you've got the 2 Shanahans, McKeever and Lauri Heinonen, all through the top 32. Rintanen would be the odd man out here if he can't get it done, and he's chasing in a very on-form Jakob Kroll, but neither of the drivers have any practice in the rain, so it could go either way. Jakob Kroll with a bit of a staggered initiation there, and he's off the track. Juha Rintanen will take the advantage straight away. Oh, look at Kroll, he's off the track again. Rintanen just sort of pausing in the chase position and saying, you figure out what you're doing, buddy, and I'll get back into this one later. Kroll again off the track, and 2 wheels over, and it has to be an incomplete at this stage for Jakob Kroll, as Juha Rintanen says, just on another wheel off the track. Jakob Kroll is on a mad one here as he goes to every single extremity on the circuit, and Jakob not getting that wet practice and not having the confidence he did in the dry, as Juha Rintanen says, I'm not getting involved. I'm not even getting involved in the battle, and I'm going to take the advantage. And that's clever driving from another driver that knows how much it means to get knocked out at this stage.
Well, if you roll it back to the initiation, Dave, I think Jakob Kroll completely between two minds about what way he was going to approach this. He hadn't made his decision in his head when he left the start line, and he just had a little bit of indecision as he went to initiate there, and from that point onwards it just looked completely unsettled and just fell apart for me. And I think Juha,
I think this could be 2 wheels off the track from...
It's a long way into the dirt there, Dave.
And I'm getting a little bit of a nod from the judges that it is 2 wheels off the circuit for Jakob Kroll, meaning an incomplete on his first run. And he was pretty much off the track from start to finish. I think he nearly dropped 2 wheels everywhere. Might have got away with this one. And the curbs are, like, look at the mud these guys are firing. And remember, it's all well and good getting back on the track, but when your tires are full of mud, you have absolutely no traction for the initiate once you come back on the curb. Your suspension is completely compressed. You start getting real light on the back of the car when it comes up, and I love that camera angle, just showing us how all of these rear suspension setups are being destroyed, essentially.
Yeah, brutalised here this weekend in Riga.
I knew Rintanen is just back there somewhere going, just let it be over. Just can we get to the finish line? That would be fantastic.
Well, he's just letting it all happen in front of him here, Dave, but now he's got to be the one in the lead position. But he will know. He'll have sat back and watched all those mistakes, and he'll have watched Nakamura take the safe approach around the circuit. Juha, a wise driver, clever driver, very experienced, and he's going to be leaving that line trying to just contain himself. Knows he doesn't need to make any huge moves here, doesn't need to push the boundaries, doesn't need to try and overexert himself. Nothing out of the ordinary here, just get yourself safely around the circuit.
You can see our starline marshal Marcin is actually putting a blower in on the windscreen of Jakob Kroll's car to try and demist it, because it is tough to see out of these cars, because of course these are not the standard. They take out all the heating systems in these cars to make them lighter and more efficient. So let's see how they go, as now Juha Rintanen, all in his hands here, just has to put in a safe, steady run and get himself to the top 16. Easier said than done, but a nice job so far from Juha Rintanen as he takes it to the edge of the track. Nothing too crazy. This is where it gets real sketchy for the lead run. Got to stay off those marbles and not put too much angle in, and it's clever from Rintanen, but he almost toys with putting 2 wheels off. Only 1 wheel off for Juha Rintanen as Jakob Kroll tries to force the issue here. Now Rintanen just has 1 corner to go to get himself into that top 16 and stay in the championship fight. Easier said than done as he almost over-rotates the car. He does over-rotate the car.
Would you believe it? Right when you thought he had nothing left to do, I was about to sing his praises, Dave. Watching him go through the circuit there, so slow and controlled, didn't put a foot wrong, just didn't try anything. I don't know what went wrong there for him at the end.
He just got a little just too heavy, I think, on the right foot. You know, maybe clutch kicked in, lost a little bit of, just maybe a moment of lapse of concentration, but the surface changes there are quite dramatic. I mean, it looks like all one corner, but it's actually a number of different surfaces there. But
look, he kept the speed low and got up onto the curb there, but 1 wheel drop.
He was flirting with it, but he got away with it. And at this point, I think, Jakob Kroll's taken the advantage on this run, but he's not going to overturn the big incomplete on the first. And Rintanen, I mean, we're going to have a look at that. Look at that second tire from Rintanen. Does it go 2 wheels off at this point?
I don't think it does.
No,
Dave,
it doesn't.
No.
It stays on the curb. So at this point, you're going, it's not great, but then this is a major error as he comes through, and he's at slow speed. He's handbraking. He's trying to get the car going, and all of a sudden, he loses the back end of the car. Jakob Kroll makes impact with the rear end of Rintanen's car, and that looks to me like Juha Rintanen's problem. It's his fault.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way of sugarcoating that one, Dave.
So is that an incomplete and an incomplete and one more time? Is that what's going to happen? We don't know, and it looks like it is going to be the way as Juha Rintanen and Jakob Kroll go one more time. And Kevin, I'm just going to come back to you quickly. Kevin, finishing a run here would be fantastic.
Yeah, it would be fantastic for us too, Dave. Unfortunately, 2 incompletes in the lead run there. You saw Jakob Kroll put 2 wheels off at outer zone 4, and you saw Juha then have an over-rotation and force an incomplete then from Jakob Kroll then on the second one as well. So when we have 2 incompletes, we have to see him go one more time.
Yeah, you can see it here as Kevin was speaking about. 2 wheels off the track from Jakob Kroll in the lead position, and then an old spinaroo from Juha Rintanen here, and he was so close to home. And now he's put all the pressure back on himself again.
I think what has me most surprised is driver of Juha's level to make that mistake at that point on the circuit when he had an incomplete on the first run in his favour.
We just don't know what the conditions are like that, because what you're looking at here, it looks like a corner, right? But the only reason that corner exists is because of all that concrete blocks, right? Normally, that's a crossover between a number of different parts of the track, so it's very different surfaces. They're no issue in the dry, because you just power through it all. But in the wet, you've got different tarmac and asphalt there, and I think it could have caught Juha out.
Perhaps, but just not at a point where we've seen other drivers have similar issues, which is kind of what makes me a little bit puzzled by it. But I understand your point, Dave, as we get ready for our final battle.
I'm trying to make sense of it, Ed.
The top 32.
I think the two of us will be a long time trying to make sense of this top 32. Maybe a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
We might meet up on Wednesday and we'll have a chat about it. We got one more battle to go. It's Benediktas Čurba against Kuba Piskolty. Piskolty in the mix, I suppose, in the championship. He's currently sitting inside the top 10, and he's a driver that's very cool, calm and collected, so he's a guy that will, I think, relish these kind of challenges, whereas Benediktas Čurba looking for a turn of form here, wanting to go up a level, wanting to go to the top 16, hasn't had the best season by his standards, so this is another interesting one.
Yeah, Čurba certainly hasn't lived up to the hype, you know, over the last few rounds, but we are here for the final top 32 battle. Piskolty to lead in Benediktas Čurba, and Čurba leaving some ground here, but look at the line here from Joakim Piskolty, just not what we were looking for.
That looks like an incomplete to me. He's just driven around the first corner. Now he's going to go off the track dramatically and near 2 wheels off. I think just one. Another straight. There's something up with Kuba Piskolty's car. I think that car shut down.
There must be problems with the car there.
It looked to me when he came through the first corner, the car just didn't spin the wheels. Something went wrong. I'm wondering, was it water got into something or something shut down? Electronic problem maybe, I'm not sure. But that is not the Kuba Piskolty we know. He doesn't just stop drifting halfway through the corner. So definitely for me, I think that is a mechanical error with Benediktas Čurba won't care what sort of error it is. He's going to get the advantage here. But it looked to me like Kuba Piskolty shuts down. Watch his car. He's on a perfect line. He initiates where he needs to be. He's on the outer zone. And all of a sudden, the car doesn't spin the wheels. Look, he just drives straight through the first corner. That's an incomplete almost for me through that there. And then you think he's on angle here. He's spinning wheels. And all of a sudden, as he comes here up towards the curb, he goes over the curb. Car gets unsettled, and as he comes out of here, car shuts down again. Watch. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not even spinning a wheel. So I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, at that point, Čurba does very well to avoid making contact.
Čurba's like, no, what are you doing?
The question here is, though, is that something that he can
he could
adjust
be
or fix on the way back up to the start line, or is he out?
He could be out of competition here, which would be awful to see Kuba Piskolty exit this early just to use the mechanical. Čurba on the last corner was like, I'm just not even entertaining the walls. I'm just going to stay here in the middle of the track and get across the line. Yeah, he knows there's a shutdown from Kuba there, so he doesn't have to really do anything except complete the run. And so it will be an incomplete for Kuba Piskolty and Benediktas Čurba. And now we're having a conversation on the start line with Kuba to see, well, I mean, he's in the chase position. If the car does shut down, it's not the most dangerous position to be, but then he's got to go into a really fast corner in the wet and not know what the car is going to do. So it can be risky too.
Well, he's obviously satisfied that whatever the issue he was having on the first run is something that he can run with for the second run.
Or he's no choice.
And that could just be it, Dave. It could be as simple as that. No choice but to give it a go.
He's definitely left in the very lead, or in the chase position here. He's had a big run. I think he's got an issue here. Yeah, he's had some issue with that car. Look, it's not.
The car just wasn't initiate for him there. So, you know, again, you got to feel as though Čurba now just needs to get through the circuit.
Yeah, this is home and dry almost for Čurba. I think at this stage we just put the lap together.
Home and dry is a stretch, Dave, in these conditions, but you know.
Home, yes, dry, no, right?
Just get it home.
Oh, just get up on the curb as Čurba tries to just hold it together here as he heads back to that outer wall. And he's into the wall, and it's just messy, but he's still alive.
Into the wall, and very nearly looks like he's going to go into an over-rotation there, but he gets it up. You know what? He's safe. He's safe, he's home, and he's into the top 16. And I think for a lot of the drivers, for the 15 drivers that are there so far, that is just going to be a huge sigh of relief for them.
You know, it's an interesting one because it's obviously elongated quite a bit here, and it says that the rain is going to kind of push on from, you know, we're having a little bit of 5 p.m. It's you know, it's almost 4 p.m. local time here right now. So in 2 hours, they say there is no more rain. Whether the track dries or not, the temperature is high here, so we will see the track dry gradually through that top 16. But for the drivers that have been in this top 32, this has been a war of attrition, not what they wanted. And it looks to me like Kuba Piskolty with a shutdown on the car is going to hand this one to Benediktas Chirba, leaving us with just the one more time between Jakob Krull and Juha Rintanen left before we exit the top 32. And you can see Kuba not even exiting the car. He's just like dejected, absolutely dejected, not even given a fighting chance ahead, and it's not what you want, especially when you're fighting, you know, from the back almost in the championship, but you're not far off, you know, the top 8 in the championship. And this is going to put Benediktas Chirba into the top 16. The Lithuanian fans here absolutely delighted with that one. But I'm not sure he wanted it that way. He would have liked a clean battle with Kuba there. And a lot of raincoats out there. So we got Becky Evans. And Becky, what happened? Does he know what's wrong with the car? Because it just shut down on him.
Kuba, can you tell us what happened there? We watched you come into the first clip and it looked like the car just didn't initiate. Can you tell us?
We had some electrical problem. We were thinking it was fixed, but directly on the acceleration, so there is no like power. The car had like, I don't know, 50 horsepower, and I tried to do something what I could, but there was no chance to do nothing, and it's like this.
Can you give us a track update? I mean, I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is.
Yeah, the track with this rain condition is super slippery and it's really hard to drive. And this is good for the drivers which are good on the wet. Then we'll see who will win today. And fingers crossed for the guys who will survive this weather.
Thank you so much, Kuba. We'll see you in Germany.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Back to you guys.
Thanks, Bex. I'll tell you one thing, survive is the word, because if your car doesn't break down, you're in the wall, you're on the curbs, you're in the muck, or you're spinning around in the standing water, and 16 drivers somehow have to come out of this top 32. And this might be the toughest day of the season, definitely the toughest I can remember in the last couple of years, for such a high level of driver to be under such pressure to try and just survive these conditions.
Yeah, and it's such a key point in the championship as well, Dave. You know, we've passed the halfway point. We're in the 4th round, 2 rounds remaining after this, and this is a huge opportunity for especially the top guys, but it's so close at the top, to try and just separate themselves from the rest of the field here, and exiting in top 32, just not what these guys are looking for.
Yeah, and you look back and you look at Więcek, Piskolty, you look at Pszczonski, 3 guys that were sort of sitting around that, you know, 5 to 10 mark in the championship, all out of competition. And at the moment, the top 3 in the championship are in the competition. But it is Juha Rintanen, the one-man odd out there, that hasn't got the job done on the first time around. He will be our final battle of the top 32. He goes up against Jakob Krull, and it was a messy one where Rintanen spins out and Krull drops 2 wheels. This is going to be tough for both of these guys. And again, coming into this on form, you look at Rintanen, he's got all the experience, he's higher in the championship, he's got a round win this year in Sweden behind him. But Jakob Krull is the higher qualifier with a 6th in qualifying yesterday. You can see just demisting those windows.
But I think what we have here is a similar battle to the Zalewski McKeever battle, where McKeever looked over the first 2 runs like the more comfortable driver, made the mistake but knew where to correct it on the one more time. Will we see that now with Juha Rintanen? He looked to be home and dry with that one mistake, but he'll have an opportunity now just to rectify all of that. It's really, in my opinion, for Jakob Krull to try and come out and really change and up his game here for this one more time, if he has any hope of going through.
For sure, and you can see Rintanen taking a big run at this in the chase position as Krull is in the lead position. This is going to be interesting as they come into that first corner. You can see Rintanen coming in. Oh, a weird entry from Jakob Krull. That was a bad entry, and he made a big mess, but he thought the car would weight transfer, and it didn't. And Rintanen had to deal with it immediately as they transition back. Rintanen now, oh, a little bit wild and a little bit wide. He hits Krull there. It looked like Rintanen lost the back end of the car and used Krull as a crutch to stay in this one. It's wet and wild here in Riga in the last battle of the top 32 as Jakob Krull still in it, Rintanen still in it. I'm not sure what way the judges are going to see those first 2 corners. Looks like both drivers having mistakes, as this is where Rintanen now goes onto the inside of the track. Krull on the left front brake. They're barely moving as they come around outer zone 6 as they slowly crawl towards the wall. And yeah, a bit of a mess there from both of them.
I like that, slowly crawl towards the wall. Look, for me, Dave, Jakob Krull making the exact same mistake as he did on the first run of their initial battle, where he just couldn't figure out what way he wanted to initiate.
Yeah, but watch this from Rintanen. He's on the inside. I think he picks up a lot of speed here, Rintanen. I'm just going to watch the lead car here. As he transitions back, it looks like Rintanen loses the back end of the car in the transition, hits Krull. A good old hit, to be honest. That Krull could have easily spun the car around and played possum on that one, but it looked to me like he stayed in it. And the 2 of them are still alive and across the line, but it was a big hit between both cars there. And the question will be, was that Jakob Krull causing that issue? Or maybe he pinned Rintanen too far on the inside between outer zone 1 and 2 that there was nowhere else for Rintanen to go but pick up speed? I have no idea.
Yeah, well,
you
look,
need a huge book of rules here, but
yeah, perhaps what you could see here is the judges just pulling that back, you know, a few feet just to see where did the mistakes and where did the errors start in the lead position, and how did that affect the chase driver, and then maybe assess if Juha Rintanen is the cause for that contact. Or if it was, in fact, Jakob Kroll in the lead position and some of the errors he was making that led them to that incident. So
well, I'm inclined to agree, Eddie, and I don't often agree with people who are beside me here in the tower, but I do, because I think Jakob Kroll's initiation, how do you deal with that if you're Juha Rintanen? He's initiated in the middle of the track and he's kind of blocked you in. So therefore you're forced to the inside and you're picking up more steam on the inside, then you transition back because you don't want to straighten, and then you're going too fast. So yeah, maybe Jakob Kroll caused it. I still think Rintanen coming way too hot. He could have pulled the handbrake, slowed the car down a little bit there. He just said, I'm just going to use Jakob Kroll like old school Gran Turismo days just to get me around the corner, ram myself through it. And yeah, bumpers lost, but no battle lost for me right now. I think it's still in the balance.
I'm inclined to think from Rintanen's point of view, he's certainly in a much better position. The fact that Kroll didn't spin, I think if Kroll had put that car into a spin there, Dave, we could be looking at a much different situation going into the second half of this one more time battle.
Honest drivers, they want to just get it done on the track. Nobody's spinning out on purpose for sure. Jakob Kroll take a big hit, but keep on swinging. And now Juha Rintanen's in the lead position, which should be his strongest position, but then we saw him over-rotate the car the last time he was in this position, so who knows? It's the last run, I would imagine. It has to be the last run of our top 32. Judges have to make a decision after this one, only allowed one more time. And Juha Rintanen goes into the lead position. His championship hopes very much on the line here as he, a weird initiation from him, and Kroll comes in way too fast, but gets it done and makes contact. And again, the judges are sitting with their hands in their heads going, what do we have to do here? I think maybe Kroll comes in too hot in the chase position, but that's a very initial response from me. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I need to get a look at that one again, Dave. You know, I think just, as you say, not the run that the judges were looking for to finish off the top 32, looking for something easy, but so, yeah, look, Rintanen's on the handbrake.
He's on the handbrake in the outer zone, and does that slow him down enough to cause Jakob Kroll to get into him? But then Kroll is coming in like rocket ship speed in the chase, and obviously Kroll will know he made the error on the first run, so he's trying to be close, and we don't even get to the end of outer zone 1 before we decide what may be Juha Rintanen's championship hopes here.
Yeah,
I'll tell you one thing, Eddie, tough out there, tough going out there.
Fantastic analysis, Dave.
Yeah, just
it's only taken you 2 hours to figure it out.
It's tough going. It's tough going.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't like to be any of those drivers out there in these conditions. No. It's just, you know, especially when you've had no opportunity. I mean, the wet is bad enough when when you've had it from practice all the way through to the end of the competition, but when you've had no opportunity to get used to conditions, you know, and all that rubber laid down on the circuit.
Well, you know what, decisions have been dropping in pretty quickly here, so I think the judges have made a fairly big call here, quite off the bat. Juha Rintanen's championship hopes lie in the balance of this one, and he's not going to feel comfortable. Neither is Jakob Kroll. I don't think either of these drivers will have any idea of which way this one's going to go. And you can see him biting down on his glove there as he knows that this is a huge decision for his year. Will Jakob Kroll or Juha Rintanen get it? It is Juha Rintanen getting the win and going through, and that will be a huge relief to him. Quickly over to you, Kevin. That to us did not look obvious.
Initially it wasn't obvious, but what we had to do was analyze that contact of what it all came down to there, Dave. And realistically, what we were deeming is, was Juha on the correct line? Yes, he was. Was he decelerating excessively? Yes, he was using a little bit of handbrake to adjust the car, but we don't think that he was excessively decelerating. And then you look at Jakob Kroll in the chase position, and he was way offline in the complete wrong place and almost overtaking Juha when the contact happened. So definitely Kroll at fault for that, and Juha gets the win.
Well, there you have it. Juha Rintanen's championship hopes, Becky, are still alive. He must be all smiles.
He is all smiles, Dave, down here. And I was just complimenting him. I said, that's the best spin I've seen all day. It was so neat and so lovely. But in 4th place in the championship so far, you must be extremely happy to be going into top 16.
Yeah, the weather is very sketchy, so I'm pretty much shaking in the car. So, well, it went really well. Shame that he hit me, but that's how it is.
And your car, you're looking super on form in it. I have to say, like, this car really suits you. But does the rain really throw it all into contention?
Yeah, it makes the difference. Some parts of the track, it's good, but some parts are so slippery, and exactly at the wall, it's very hard.
Hoping for better weather this afternoon, I can imagine?
yeah, I hopefully it dries out, so we'll have some good battles.
Thank you so much. Go get dry.
Thanks, Becky. Well, we can. You know what? I'm going to guarantee you there's going to be better weather because it can't get any worse than it is now. Right now, we are finishing up our top 32. It's been a wet and wild one, Ed. It's been an unpredictable one, and it's funny how unpredictably we have a predictable finish, except for Piotr Więcek going out to Nicholas Bertans. Piotr Więcek's championship now looking very unlikely unless crazy things happen. Crazier things can happen. Max Heidrich didn't even get through the first corner in that one. Him and Joakim Andersson, and he goes through. Korpuliński. James Deane dispatches Kevin Piskolty after Piskolty spins out. Lauri Heinonen still second in the championship. Got rid of Paweł Grosz there. And Conor Shanahan against Alex Holovnia. Holovnia going off the track as well. So Conor Shanahan, Lauri Heinonen, and Jack Shanahan and Juha Rintanen, they're all still in the competition. And here is what is ahead of us later today. Hopefully with a drier track and a little bit more smoke in the air. But it's still raining right now. Look at this big battle between Max Heidrich and Nik Nak. We've got Korpuliński against James Deane right off the bat. Lauri Heinonen goes up against a Diogo Correia that's very much on form. And look at this, Eryk Goczał against Duane McKeever. Conor Shanahan, Juha Pöytälaakso. Jack Shanahan against Marco Zaccarol. Michael Reichardt against Naoki Nakamura. And Benediktas Čurba against Juha Rintanen. Now they are all stacked up against each other. Becky, it's going to be an interesting finish to this one. And I mean that with all pun intended, as we have got the Irish and the Finnish still fighting it out for the championship, but in very tough conditions.
Absolutely, Dave. Our top 5 still in the championship fight. An unexpected exit from Peter there. But look, this afternoon we've got our top 16 battles all to come. We're hoping for a weather change. I don't know who's been doing their rain dance around here, but I'm hoping for some sun. So make sure you guys join us at 5:55. We're going to be live on Red Bull TV. It's going to be great. We'll see you there.